Hey truckers, here is part 3 of the guide to conquering Earthlings. Let's dive into the video. She encountered the cats when she reached a shaded corner of the estate while walking back to Xia Cheng's place. The first one appeared. Then a second, followed by a third, fourth, fifth. These 5 cats suddenly sprang out from the bushes and arrogantly strode out in front of Shi's heart leapt. This was an organized raid on a large scale. The 5 cats looked random but had actually surrounded Shi very deliberately. Her 4 directions were completely blocked by the cats. They even arrogantly meowed at Shi to provoke her. Shi analyzed the fighting power of the other party, of which 4 looked like adult cats, with developed muscles and shiny fur. Only one black and white one looked slightly thinner, with one leg lame. The cats on Mui Star had long been extinct, so there were no textbooks or works explaining how people on Mui Star should fight when they encountered such natural enemies, in case a fierce battle broke out here. Shi targeted the lame-legged one, so she would break through from this one. This was a battle on the verge of breaking out. Shi felt that the air was full of the smell of gunpowder. Shi stared at them, and they also looked at Shi. Shi didn't even dare to move. She could only take out her cell phone with trembling hands and ask Xia Cheng for help. Fortunately, after a stalemate for 2 minutes, probably because of Shi's princess temperament and imperial majesty, they did not dare to act rashly to attack Shi. After taking a deep look at her, they ran into the woods one after another. When Xia Cheng hurried to the place where Shi was, he regretted it. There was neither anyone nor anything else around her, only the shadows of the trees on the road and the light of the street lamps, and the night reflected a blurred shadow on the road surface. The street lamp at this corner of Xia Cheng's community could be said to be bright enough, and the moonlight was also good tonight. It was not dark enough to be scary. Here, it was not too far from where the driver parked either. Over the years, Xia Cheng had encountered girls who played little tricks and pretended to be weak. It was just that other girls' tricks would make everything around them look very reasonable, such as at least finding a dark corner where the streetlight was broken, but Shi. This person was so stupid that even after he had privately tutored her on relevant social knowledge points several times, this guy still played her tricks so straightforwardly. At least find an intersection that really makes people a little afraid. Xia Cheng looked at the still slightly trembling Shi in the night wind, and felt that being able to come up with such a clumsy excuse and trick was already difficult for her. However, being fooled by such a clumsy plan, he didn't seem to be very smart either. Xia Cheng frowned, really wanting to question Shi. How could there be anything scary in such a well-secured community, and where were the scary things? But before he could say anything, Shi saw him. Her face showed an expression of relief after a disaster and being saved. Her eyes were full of trust and dependence, shiny, no less than the stars in the night. Then she ran to Xia Cheng quickly, her voice still trembling a little pitifully. "Xia Cheng, fortunately you came." She leaned against Xia Cheng, as if just this made her feel much safer, and pretended to be calm and relieved. "Just now." Shi gestured, "There were some very scary things here." Xia Cheng rubbed his eyebrows, really wanted to ask Shi, where did the scary things come from in such a well-secured community? But before he spoke, he saw Shi carefully shook Xia Cheng's sleeve. "Can you take me to the parking lot entrance of the community where the driver stopped?" She moved closer to Xia Cheng and lowered her voice mysteriously. "I'll tell you a secret, this kind of opportunity is rare, not always available, very rare." With her emotional intelligence, trying her best to find such a stupid excuse and pretend to be so modest, she just hoped that he could send her to the door. Anyway, the driver would take her home. Xia Cheng looked at the corner where they were, not far from the community gate, and he had already come down from upstairs, so he would just send her back. He had already made up his mind to keep his distance from Shi in the future. When he found a suitable behavioral interventionist, he wouldn't have much more contact with Shi. Occasionally once, it would also count as doing a good deed that day. Charity is accumulated from the trivial details of daily life after all. Xia Cheng sent Shi to the door and made sure she got in the car before leaving. But when he passed the corner again, he suddenly met several stray cats, probably 4 or 5, of which several were obviously fed by someone, thriving, except for a small skinny cow cat that couldn't keep up with the other cats. When it walked to Xia Cheng, this skinny little cow cat actually stopped and meowed at Xia Cheng, rubbing against his pants leg. Xia Cheng instinctively backed away 2 steps, but the cat was not afraid at all, and actually meowed cutely and rubbed against Xia Cheng again, looking at Xia Cheng with pure and slightly expectant cute eyes. So Xia Cheng made the mistake everyone would make. By the time he reacted, he had already taken the cow cat to the pet hospital to treat the wound, dewormed it, and then took it home. He had picked up big ones like Shi, and it wouldn't hurt to add a small one. Moreover, in the relevant works on autism intervention, some studies have shown that about 1/3 of autistic patients, although they have severe social disabilities with people, can form intimate connections with animals. Pets, service dogs and animal-assisted therapy can alleviate autism to varying degrees, handle social and life stresses, and even help them improve their social communication skills. Xiacheng decided that after the kitten's injury was healed, he would give it to Lanxi. He also didn't know how happy she would be. However, he still had to make it clear to her that this gift did not represent anything, and he must prevent Lanxi from having improper thoughts. Lanxi had been eagerly looking forward to going to the amusement park ever since she returned from the buffet. However, she waited for a week, and then another week, but Xiacheng showed no sign of making any plans. In light of the situation, Lanxi consulted the Earthling's Guide to Conquest and found the answer in the Q&A section. Earthling males are creatures who can make promises at any time. Many Earthling males like to exaggerate, and when the atmosphere is right and hormones are flowing, they will promise anything. In such a case, we can first implement the following plan: a gentle and well-intentioned reminder. Some Earthling males genuinely forget their promises, and once reminded, there is a chance they will follow through. However, it is important to remember that the reminder must be gentle, not direct, and certainly not in an interrogative manner. It is best to be indirect, not speaking with your own voice, but borrowing someone else's mouth. That is the most clever approach. So that's how it is. Now she understood. Lanxi was greatly enlightened, and the only remaining question was how to naturally and subtly appear beside Xiacheng to give him hints. But this remaining question had become the only current problem. These past few days, Xiacheng had been busy with external collaborations and Lanxi rarely saw him in the office. And perhaps to spare her efforts, this kind-hearted Earthling man had been going out alone without taking Lanxi along. So where could she find Xiacheng? Lanxi thought for a moment and looked towards Liang Di, who was the most well-informed person in the company. Unfortunately, Liang Di seemed to be in a bad mood recently, often daydreaming and lacking enthusiasm. Normally, Liang Di was lively and loved sharing the progress of Chaoan every day. 8 out of 10 sentences couldn't be spoken without mentioning Chaoan. But in these past few days, Lanxi hadn't heard Chaoan's name from Liang Di's mouth at all. However, Chaoan definitely hadn't recovered yet. After all, for Earthlings, it takes 100 days for bones and muscles to heal, and Lanxi knew her own abilities. It wasn't something that could just get better when promised. So, could it be? Lanxi connected the description in the Earthling's Guide to Conquest with the current situation, and there was only one answer: Chaoan. His condition was likely worsening, which was why Liang Di was so reserved and disheartened. Carefully choosing her words, Lanxi asked, "Has something happened to Chaoan?" Liang Di widened her eyes, which were originally listless, and cautiously looked around. Then she leaned in close to Lanxi and whispered, "Is it that obvious?" She had indeed guessed it right. But after she finished speaking, Liang Di's emotions seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Lanxi didn't dare think too much. Could it be that she had been too harsh with her words? Was Chaoan's condition deteriorating to the point of no return? As much as she didn't want it to happen, the more she wished for it, the more likely it would occur. Liang Di's next words made Lanxi's head feel hot. "I'm treating him as if he's already dead." So this meant, although he wasn't dead yet, it was likely that he would be soon. Liang Di had already mentally prepared herself, treating him as if he were already dead. Lanxi hesitated to ask any further because Liang Di's previously resilient emotions seemed to be on the verge of breaking down. Her eyes were slightly red. Lanxi wanted to offer her condolences, but Liang Di sniffed and said, "It's okay. Out with the old, in with the new. Tonight, I plan to attend a gathering with peers and meet new people." Although Lanxi didn't understand the logic behind getting to know more people when Chaoan was on the verge of death, she nodded vigorously, pretending to comprehend. At this point, Liang Di glanced at Lanxi and said, "Well, everything has already come to an end." Come to an end? Wasn't he just presumed dead a moment ago? How could a person completely cease to exist in just a few sentences? Lanxi couldn't believe it and exclaimed, "Is it really over? So soon?" Liang Di looked somewhat melancholy and replied, "Yes. The departure of certain individuals can be sudden and unexpected." She cast a compassionate glance at Lanxi and continued, "You haven't experienced it, so you wouldn't understand. Some people are just passing through your life, and they quickly exit your stage. Although that might be the case, Chowan seemed to have a decent constitution, and she didn't even use her full strength with that punch. Are Earthlings really that fragile? Liang Di added, by the way, please keep Chowan's matter confidential. Naturally. After all, Chowan's death was partly her responsibility. It's better if Xiaqing doesn't find out. They seem to have a close relationship, and how devastated would he be if he knew? However, Lan Shi blamed herself for Chowan's passing. So, is it my fault that he left? Do I need to take responsibility? Liang Di gave Lan Shi a bewildered look and said, what does it have to do with you? It's purely a matter between him and me. Why would you need to take responsibility? But I accidentally injured him before. Liang Di looked at Lan Shi's genuinely remorseful expression and couldn't help but think that her friend was truly kind-hearted. While it was true that Lan Shi's accidental injury led to the intersection between Liang Di and Chowan, if they traced it back, it was mainly because Liang Di mistook the scumbag she was trying to expose. If one were to establish a causal relationship, it was likely that Liang Di herself was at the root of the subsequent chain of events. Therefore, Liang Di sincerely comforted Lan Shi, you're not at fault for this. Don't blame yourself. Although Lan Shi didn't fully understand, Liang Di's continuous reassurance finally made her believe that Chowan's departure was likely due to other reasons. Perhaps he had some underlying health issues? But Xiaqing would definitely be heartbroken. Speaking of Xiaqing, Lan Shi immediately thought of her purpose in seeking out Liang Di. She had to conquer Earth before anything else. Lan Shi looked at Liang Di and asked, so, do you know where Xiaqing will be tonight? Liang Di sniffed and lived up to expectations. Xiaqing? He has an appointment with a client tonight. They will be dining at the Chinese restaurant on the 3rd floor of the Splendor Tower. Also, would you like to join my gathering tonight? Lan Shi waved her hand, saying, I have some important matters to attend to tonight. Then, when you're done, come over. I'll treat you. Xiaqing offered. Lan Shi nodded. At this moment, her heart was filled with anticipation for the Jinsho Tower. The Jinsho Tower was the destination she was going to tonight. So what if she couldn't say it directly and had to indirectly remind Xiaqing to go to the amusement park? She was good at this. It was simple. Recently, Xiaqing encountered a major obstacle in his work. In order to expand the business, Qingxi needed access to a weather data analysis platform. It was supposed to be a win-win cooperation. However, unexpectedly, the owner of the platform was very difficult to communicate with. Just when they had almost finalized the contract and price terms, the owner suddenly changed their mind, demanding a price increase. Otherwise, they refused to grant the cooperation permission. This is the information about the owner. Her name is Dong Ying, 30 years old, unmarried and childless. She started from scratch and created the data analysis platform. The weather data analysis module is just a part of their business. The person reporting was Meng Hui, Xiaqing's former junior. His face, which was originally full of enthusiasm, now looked quite disheartened. Initially, the communication through emails and phone calls was going well. We almost finalized the contract terms, and I used some negotiation tactics to secure a relatively good deal. I was waiting to sign the contract. She had been living overseas all this time, but happened to return to the country. I invited her to dinner, intending to maintain the customer relationship. However, things went wrong. Meng Hui's voice grew more discouraged. During the meal, she asked me if the price in our contract was the highest price we could offer. I don't know what happened to me, but it was as if I was under a spell. I couldn't help but tell her about my negotiation tactics and that we still had room to negotiate on the price. The subsequent events didn't need Meng Hui to explain because upon learning that Qingxin had a budget surplus for the cooperation price, Dong Ying immediately reneged on the agreement. She declared the original contract terms null and void, insisting that the conditions for cooperation needed to be renegotiated. Senior, believe me, there's something really strange about her. I felt like I was under a curse. Whatever she asked, I couldn't help but tell the truth. Even if I consciously tried to lie, I would immediately lose control and correct my lies. This situation continued until this morning when my mind finally cleared up. Meng Hui looked at Xiaqing with a concerned gaze. I'm sorry, Senior. I messed up this negotiation, and now you have to handle it personally. Please be careful tonight. Maybe you should go to a temple and light some incense for a protective charm. Aside from apologizing profusely, Meng Hui still had a lingering fear on his face. Although Xiaqing didn't know what had happened, he always believed in science, numbers, and algorithms. He believed that everything had a logical explanation and didn't believe in things like being cursed. Meng Hui had a fondness for alcohol, and most likely, he had been under a lot of work pressure lately, causing him to drink excessively and become muddled. Xiaqing didn't think Dong Ying could gain any advantage by approaching him. He was very confident about this negotiation. After finishing the academic exchange meeting in the afternoon, he would head straight to the Splendid Tower and quickly finalize the contract. Dong Ying arrived early at the Splendid Tower and waited. She looked at her reflection in the window glass, beautiful, graceful, and elegant. As soon as she took her seat, the gazes of men around her swept over, which pleased her greatly. Could her charisma be any less? After all, she was a member of the Mui Star royal family. With her looks, she would easily be the #1 beauty on Mui Star if it weren't for her annoying cousin. In the words of Earthlings, it could be said that the jade is beautiful, but the light is brighter. Dong Ying believed in the motto better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix, so she had started living on Earth a few years ago during interstellar travel. Here, her appearance could easily captivate any man and receive various pursuits. The latest chapter of Yifiren's work, The Earthlings Conquest Guide, is first released and updated on the entire network. The domain name is. Because she possessed the ability to hypnotize others using her voice, whenever she spoke to someone face-to-face and asked them to tell the truth, they had no way to refuse. Although the duration of the psychological suggestion varied for different individuals, it was generally sufficient. Just a few days ago, during a negotiation with a meteorological data analysis company, she discovered room for negotiation in the contract price. Now she sat in the restaurant, waiting for the representative of the other company to come and discuss in detail. In business, Dong Ying had no intention of going easy. However, when she saw the face of the other party, Dong Ying hesitated. This Earthman was so handsome, with hormones raging and in his prime breeding period. His physique was whistle-worthy, and the cold, strong demeanor perfectly matched Dong Ying's taste. Of course, even such a man had no chance against her once they faced each other. What did it matter if he appeared composed and distant on the surface? Internally, adrenaline was likely already pumping, and his mind was preoccupied with certain thoughts. Dong Ying had previously lived in several countries on Earth and encountered various races of Earthlings, but almost all Earthmen fell under her charm. Therefore, this time, Dong Ying was extremely confident. The other party would most likely fall in love at first sight, and if not immediately, they would be smitten with her after 10 minutes of conversation. After all, her inherent aristocratic temperament was undeniable. At that point, as long as she used her ability to elicit the truth, she could see through the other person's thoughts. However, although she was a noble of the Mui Star royal family, she didn't mind occasionally having a romantic relationship with an Earthman like him. Even compromising a bit on the contract would be inconsequential. When Xiaqing arrived at the Splendid Tower, Dong Ying was already there. She was a beautiful woman, elegant and well-maintained, with every move exuding grace. Her appearance could rival that of a celebrity. Xiaqing prepared himself for the negotiation, but Dong Ying just smiled at him and said, "The contract can be signed according to the previous terms and price. 5DDEU UPTS on NOV/E/LN.com. Just consider us friends." Dong Ying glanced at Xiaqing, her eyes filled with charm. "But from now on, you have to tell me the truth because I like genuine people." This turn of events caught Xiaqing by surprise, but he was relieved that the contract could be resolved so smoothly. "Ms. Dong is straightforward, and I came here today because I genuinely want to be friends with you." However, for some reason, right after Xiaqing finished these polite words, his mouth seemed to have a will of its own and spoke his most honest thoughts at that moment. "I lied before. I didn't actually want to be friends with you." Xiaqing had no idea what was happening. He felt like he had seen a ghost. His mouth seemed to have a mind of its own, relentlessly speaking the truths he didn't want to utter. However, Dong Ying, on the other side, was not surprised. She remained calm despite his outburst and simply pursed her lips and smiled. "I know," she said, then cast a seductive smile at Xiaqing. "Many men don't want to be just ordinary friends with me. They want to be my boyfriend." Dong Ying was confident. "So, I am the most beautiful woman you've ever seen, right?" Xiaqing didn't want to answer such a foolish question, but his mouth involuntarily spoke again, "No." Dong Ying didn't mind. She patiently waited for Xiaqing's next words. However, after waiting for 5 minutes, her smile became somewhat stiff. Xiacheng still hadn't denied his previous answer. Is that all? Dong Ying's face filled with an incredulous astonishment. Was what you just said the truth? Xiacheng's mouth once again answered the other person's question without his control, yes. Then who is the woman you've seen who is more beautiful than me? She's my employee. Dong Ying felt utterly defeated. Her tone turned biting. So, this is your attitude toward being friends with me? You think your employee can compare to me? Xiacheng had given up hope for his mouth. Sure enough, he heard himself speak with an unapologetic tone. I never intended to be friends with you in the first place. Being friends is just a formality. How could you take it seriously? As for my employee, she is indeed much more beautiful than you, but perhaps when it comes to an overall evaluation, she can't compare to you. These words slightly cleared Dong Ying's expression, and she regained her interest. Oh. So, what's wrong with her? Xiacheng looked at the banner that suddenly dropped from the office building across from the splendid tower, and he felt that tonight's mood couldn't be described as magical anymore. On the conspicuous banner, the red background and white words clearly spelled out. Xiacheng, remember to take Lan Shi to the amusement park. Reminder from someone, definitely not Lan Shi. To ensure visibility at night, it even had a fluorescent effect. At the same time, Xiacheng's phone received a text message notification. He lowered his head to check, and the message appeared before his eyes. I am a domineering CEO. 3 years ago, I divorced my ex-wife and was framed, leaving me with nothing but my dignity as I begged on the streets. But now, after 3 years of begging, I have returned as the king and reclaimed my throne in the business world. I will take Lan Shi to the amusement park and show you how I overcame adversity, humiliated my ex-wife, and sought revenge on those scum. Xiacheng didn't even know what to say anymore. Sending such a message was already outrageous enough, but what made it even more outrageous was that the sender's information proudly displayed Lan Shi's name, using the company's assigned phone number. At the very least, they could have changed the phone number. Xiacheng closed her eyes and looked at Dong Ying with a sense of despair. With heartfelt sincerity, she said, she's not all there in the head. After getting off work, Lan Shi was very busy. She first went to pick up the rush-ordered banner, then frantically edited the text messages. After hanging up the banner and sending the messages, she sneaked into the Jinsho building. All the two-person dining tables in the Jinsho building were semi-private rooms in nature. One side faced the office building across the street, with a panoramic view of the bustling commercial street scene, which was quite a sight at night when the lights were on and the cars and people were busy. The other side facing the aisle was blocked by beautiful beaded curtains, although you could vaguely see that there were people inside, but you couldn't hear what they were saying. She had originally decided to wait until Xiacheng was dining, and then subtly imply to him. But she was at a loss for a moment to figure out which private room he was in. But no difficulty could defeat the brave Princess Lan Shi. Lan Shi naturally had a way. She called Xiacheng's phone and tracked it by the ringtone. She finally located the person. At this moment, the waiter walked to the private room and lifted the beaded curtain. Lan Shi saw a familiar yet unexpected face. Sitting opposite Xiacheng was her most hated cousin, Dong Ying. If the instinctive stress response when encountering danger or enemies is the instinct of all creatures, then when Lan Shi saw Dong Ying, her first reaction was that her whole body tensed up. This was almost an unconscious feedback. Her cousin Dong Ying had been against Lan Shi since childhood. Although she was no match for Lan Shi in terms of strength, she was good at dirty tricks. Dong Ying's ability was psychological suggestion. Lan Shi didn't know how many times she had fallen into her traps and made a fool of herself. Most of the grievances between Dong Ying and Lan Shi came from the fact that Dong Ying wanted to snatch everything from Lan Shi: the tasks Lan Shi had claimed, the nutritional supplements Lan Shi was eating, Lan Shi's friends, the clothes Lan Shi wore. Now Lan Shi had just won the first battle on Earth and conquered the important man Xiacheng. The complete conquest of the Earth was just around the corner. At this critical moment, Dong Ying actually appeared on Earth. Wasn't she trying to? She must want to snatch away the Earthlings Lan Shi had conquered, just like before. Then snatch away the major task of conquering the Earth from Lan Shi. Lan Shi would never allow this to happen. She glared at Dong Ying in the private room, feeling uncomfortable with the way Dong Ying looked at Xiacheng. Lan Shi originally didn't know what the ogling eyes Xiacheng was talking about looked like, but at this moment, she felt that she had finally learned it intuitively. It was exactly like Dong Ying. That was an ogling look. Obviously not with good intentions. The poor defenseless earthling man was no match for this old treacherous woman. Xiaqing could no longer stay with her. It was unsafe for Xiaqing. Lan Shi thought for a moment, had a flash of inspiration, glanced at Xiaqing's vague figure behind the beaded curtain, took a deep breath and immediately took action. Xiaqing! Hold on. I'll come to save you right away. As soon as Lan Shi came out of the Jinshu building, she turned the corner to the intersection where there was a large human resources market, with countless people who came to the city to find work flowing through it at all times. Lan Shi pursed her lips and looked around for a full circle before finally finding the window she was looking for. The person in charge of that window was an old auntie, with a fat cat crouching in the crook of her arm and 5 or 6 more cats lingering behind her seat. Lan Shi cleared her throat and said while keeping a wary eye on the cats, "I want to hire 10 people. And all the cats you have here." While Dong Ying asked Xiaqing a few more questions about his family, property, bank deposits, girlfriend, health conditions, and other background checks, she was quite satisfied with the answers. Just as she was about to give him a new subliminal message, the waiter lifted the beaded curtain. "Miss Dong, a gift has been delivered to the front desk for you. Please go over to sign for it." Dong Ying was a little surprised. "A gift?" "Yes, it was said to be prepared by Xiaqing Technology for you." "Xiaqing Technology? Isn't that Xiaqing's company name?" She came to meet with Xiaqing today to discuss cooperation between their companies, so this was a thoughtful greeting gift prepared by Xiaqing in advance. Dong Ying was quite flattered. She glanced at Xiaqing, "So you prepared a gift for me?" Xiaqing already looked rather desperate after being forced to answer many truths. He pursed his lips. "No." Look, still being stubborn. Dong Ying noticed that Xiaqing would always quickly deny it, but after a while, he would have to tell the truth under her subliminal message to tell the truth. Besides, no one else knew about Dong Ying's schedule at Jinshu building tonight except Xiaqing. Who else could it be from? Although the man in front of her said he wasn't the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, aesthetics were quite personal after all. He also admitted that her overall score was still better, and the woman he considered more beautiful wasn't smart. Looking at it from another perspective, wasn't that a compliment to her intelligence? After all, alluring looks can easily fade over time, while modern Earthlings have begun to yearn for sapiosexuality. An interesting soul and advanced IQ are the core competitive strengths that can keep a man fascinated in the long run. So since he had prepared gifts in advance, he must have valued her. His stubborn denial now also showed that he had an irresistible attraction to her that he couldn't control. Sometimes, stubborn men should also be given some leeway to save face. Dong Ying felt she had already seen through the man in front of her. This time, before Xiaqing could correct himself under her subliminal message and tell the truth, she took the lead and got up. "No need to say more, I understand." She blinked. "Since there's a gift, I'll go sign for it first." But before leaving, Dong Ying still decided to give herself some dessert. She glanced at Xiaqing again, checked the time, and laughed softly behind her hand. "You will wait here quietly, and will be inseparable and indulge uncontrollably with the first woman you see other than the waiter 5 minutes from now." "That woman is me." Dong Ying didn't finish the last sentence. This feeling of being left wanting more made her heart race even faster. It would take exactly 5 minutes to go back and forth between the private room and lobby to collect the gift. Jinshu building had a great environment that wouldn't allow outsiders other than staff to enter private rooms. Although she had been using her subliminal ability for many years, Dong Ying still occasionally hoped for a little surprise. Humming a song, she went to the front desk, only to find a row of 6 or 7 men and women waiting for her. Without exception, they were all holding a gift box, quite large, and waving little Dong Ying flags printed with hearts, obviously meant for her. Xiaqing looked cold, but unexpectedly quite romantic. It's just that these gift-bearers were a bit strange. Although enthusiastic, none of them spoke, only waving vigorously at Dong Ying and the little flags when they saw her. But such a formation had undoubtedly made Dong Ying the center of attention of the crowd. She walked up with some modesty and took the first gift box, then discovered something wrong. There was movement inside the gift box. So what was it? Dong Ying reflexively opened the gift box and was almost unable to breathe from fright. A cat! It was a cat! The arch-nemesis cat of the Mui Star people. The box was actually filled with a little cat. And the rest of the gift-bearers didn't seem to mind making matters worse by successively delivering their gift boxes, which contained cats without exception, judging from the meowing sounds. Since arriving on Earth, Dong Ying had been very careful to avoid cats. She didn't know what terrible things would happen if the Mui Star people met cats. Anyway, according to historical records, cats were very scary. It was said that encountering cats could even make the Mui star people lose their mobility. The unknown danger brought doubled fear. In an instant, Dong Ying's hands and feet turned ice cold, frozen in place. It took her a while before she finally remembered her ability. 7 sit envelb/n, c/m for L test vels. Now, take these cats with you and leave. Only Dong Ying, who was originally listening to her own words and should have gotten the psychological hint to hug the cat and leave, didn't move at all at this moment. She just continued to smile enthusiastically and push the gift box in front of Dong Ying. Dong Ying was both panicked and angry, almost raging like thunder. Could it be that the cat was so terrifying that it could make the Mui star people's special abilities ineffective before it? Soon, Dong Ying confirmed this. Because now surrounded by cats, she even had hallucinations and saw Lan Shi, the arch-nemesis she hated most in her life, appear before her eyes. Cats were indeed very terrifying. Lan Shi hid sneakily behind a pillar and observed the movements in the lobby. Sure enough, after her cousin Dong Ying was surrounded by cats, she lost her fighting power. Fortunately, she had prepared in advance and went to the Human Resources Market Residual Alliance's window to hire several deaf and mute people. Dong Ying's ability was indeed very strong, but the psychological hints given by language still had to work for people who could hear her speak. It was invalid for the deaf and dumb. Now that Dong Ying was taken care of, she could go to rescue Xia Cheng. Lan Shi finished it off in no time and rushed straight to the private room, lifting the beaded curtain. To her relief, Xia Cheng was still sitting in his original place, waiting quite quietly. The swaying candlelight on the private room's dining table shed light on a corner, casting ripples of firelight onto Xia Cheng's superb side profile. The illusory light and shadow changes gave this handsome earth male a sense of mystery that was both distant and close. It looked like he hadn't been poisoned by Dong Ying. To still be waiting quietly in his original place without being lost due to Dong Ying should have been a relaxing thing for Lan Shi. However, Lan Shi felt a strange emotion rising in her heart. She was a little angry. According to Earth people's theory, in male and female relationships, after one party was conquered by the other party, wasn't this an exclusive relationship? So, wasn't Xia Cheng guilty of a heinous crime? For this, Lan Shi felt quite heartbroken. She racked her brains to recall the critical vocabulary commonly used by Earth people at this time and passionately rebuked, "Don't you know that chastity is the best dowry for a man, loyalty is the most beautiful scenery for a man, masculinity is a required course for every man?" Question mark. You were just so close to danger just now. Fortunately, I rushed over. According to the Earth People Conquest Guide, when holding someone accountable, you must spew out a string of accusations in one breath, attacking intensively, so that the other party has no time to sort out their thoughts and fight back. Use the abundant emotions and excellent momentum to win at the starting line. This was how Lan Shi saw it, and how she practiced it. She put her hands on her hips, taking on the stance of standing on the moral high ground. So what exactly were you thinking, Xia Cheng? Were you really waiting quietly in place for Dong Ying? This was meant to be a concluding question. Lan Shi did not expect Xia Cheng to give any constructive answer. However, to her surprise, Xia Cheng answered her question. I wasn't thinking anything. Although he had just been reprimanded by Lan Shi, his appearance was still as aloof and indifferent as ever. But soon, his face showed an odd embarrassed expression again, as if struggling with some willpower, gritting his teeth and pressing his lips tightly, as if desperately not wanting to speak. Yet soon he looked like he had to open his mouth no matter what. In the end, the will to speak apparently defeated the silence. What I just said was a lie. I was thinking a lot, wondering why your brain circuits are so weird, curious as to how you managed to live to this age, wondering what other surprises are waiting for me, wondering where you are and what you're doing now, whether you're with other men, whether you've been fooled again, whether you're in danger. Lan Shi had never seen Xia Cheng so willing to share before. He spoke as if he had said a lifetime's worth of words. And I'll definitely take you to get your brain checked in a few days. Lan Shi almost reflexively retorted, I'm not getting my brain checked. My brain is perfectly fine. She looked at Xia Cheng warily. Why is your mind full of thoughts about me? Aren't you here to talk business? Shouldn't you be focused on work and thinking about business? If you don't keep shaking in front of me, I certainly won't think of you. Xia Cheng's voice was a little unnatural, but his attitude was still justified resistance. I've been very generous in not pursuing you for affecting my work already. However, there were some cracks in his calm voice. Obviously he was not as calm as he appeared. Lan Shi saw him glare at her and warn, "From now on, don't ask random nonsense questions." Lan Shi was very quick to learn, "Then what are random nonsense questions? Can you give an example?" Xiaqing looked at Lan Shi as if facing a formidable enemy. "The questions you ask are all random nonsense questions. Just don't ask questions." Unfortunately, as soon as he finished speaking, that uncontrollable feeling came over him again. By the time Xiaqing reacted, he was already giving Lan Shi examples of what random nonsense questions were. Do you want to read the 27th chapter of the Earth People Conquest Guide written by EARTHLINGS? Please remember the domain name of this site. Xiaqing was stingy with words. Lan Shi felt something was off with him today. Are you drunk? Facing Lan Shi's question, Xiaqing almost immediately gave a negative answer. No, didn't drink a drop. Lan Shi frowned and leaned in to smell Xiaqing. Indeed, there was no smell. But when she stood up to leave, she found Xiaqing's originally calm face slightly flushed. You really didn't drink? Then why is your face so red? Xiaqing averted his gaze and gave a concise answer, hot. Just as Lan Shi was about to retort that it wasn't hot, she heard Xiaqing continue in a desperate tone. What I just said was a lie. Because you got too close to me, I got a little nervous and blushed. So did you see any special banners? No. Unfortunately, Xiaqing was just like a car with automatic error correction installed. After replying no in a convincing tone, he immediately self-corrected. I saw it. You must have seen the text message too? No. Xiaqing seemed to be making a final struggle, but after a moment, he had no choice but to use a hopeless expression to correct his own lie again. I saw that too. Such a boring text message. Deeply impressed. Can you stop asking? How could she stop asking? This was the purpose of Lan Shi's trip. She cleared her throat. So you understand what it means, right? This time, Xiaqing seemed to have resigned himself. He no longer denied it, only rubbed his aching brows. I understand. I know. I'll take you to the amusement park next weekend when I'm free. Don't ask weird questions again. Lan Shi was finally satisfied with the satisfactory answer. Look, the guide didn't deceive me. Such hints and beating around the bush were indeed very effective. So what kind of preparation is needed to go to the amusement park? Do I need to buy anything? Is there any equipment I need to bring? I heard there are a lot of guides. I just haven't been there for so long that I kind of forgot. While Xiaqing kept answering Lan Shi's questions very obediently, he was extremely angry inside. He suspected that Dong Ying had drugged him, wondering if it was some kind of truth serum, because he found that he had become unable to lie. Even when lying, it was as if someone had forcibly installed an automatic error correction function. He had just finished lying when he eagerly couldn't wait to expose himself. His abnormality like this, even a dull person would notice something wrong. Sure enough, after a few more times like this, astonishment appeared on Lan Shi's face soon. Xiaqing, I feel like there's something wrong with you. Right now, no matter what I ask you, can you not control yourself and you have to blurt out what you really think? Xiaqing simply couldn't lie at all. He could only nod and admit the current state he was in with an ugly expression. That's right, I can't control it. I may have been drugged. Lan Shi stared at Xiaqing with her bright black eyes, as if trying to find traces of lies on his face. At this point, Xiaqing frowned and thought for a while. Indeed, but I didn't expect her to play dirty and drug me to make me tell the truth. In order to prevent Lan Shi from asking more weird questions, Xiaqing glanced at Lan Shi, then urged, hurry up and take me out of here, take me to the hospital right away. If I was drugged, I might need to get my stomach pumped. Fortunately, although Lan Shi's mind was not great, she was still a decent person at critical moments with some sense of responsibility. After hearing Xiaqing's words, she also seemed to have an epiphany and patted her head. Yes, you're right, we have to leave quickly. As soon as she finished speaking, she pulled Xiaqing and walked quickly out of Jinqiu building. Apparently, she believed it. Xiaqing breathed a sigh of relief. The nearest hospital is the second affiliated hospital, but the medical skills of the doctors at the second affiliated hospital are much worse than the first affiliated hospital, so call a taxi to take me to the first affiliated hospital. After leaving the bizarre Jinqiu building, due to psychological effects, Xiaqing felt his tight nerves relax. Moreover, Dong Ying was no longer by his side now, instead it was Lan Shi, which made him feel slightly more secure. Indeed, unlike Dong Ying, Lan Shi was not a smart person, but sometimes, silly people can also be more reliable than smart people. After all, people with poor minds usually don't have so many twists and turns and don't know how to secretly set traps for others. In a way, that can also be considered a type of kindness. At that moment, Xiaqing decided to believe that there is still true affection in this world. In such an absurd situation of being drugged to only tell the truth, ordinary people would probably need a long and dry explanation from Xiaqing before they would half believe it. However, Lan Shi only pondered slightly before fully believing Xiaqing's explanation and trusting him. A slow mind apparently also has its advantages. Moreover, after understanding Xiaqing's current strange condition, Lan Shi did not ask any more embarrassing questions that would be difficult to answer. Just this point made Xiaqing feel that, based on a comprehensive score, he should give Lan Shi some extra points. She wasn't that bad after all. Indeed, not very smart, but beautiful and kind. He followed Lan Shi out of Jinxiu building. She brought him to a secluded place. Just as he wanted to compliment Lan Shi for being reliable in an emergency, he saw her excitedly grab his arm. Under the dim street lamp, Lan Shi's eyes seemed to glow. She stared at Xiaqing's eyes with a bright, eager, concerned gaze, making him feel somewhat at a loss for a moment. Lan Shi relied too much on him, and he understood her too well. In this kind of environment, this kind of atmosphere, with her staring at him so enthusiastically, it was obvious what she wanted to do. She must be trying to take advantage of the situation to ask him how he truly felt about her. Xiaqing became nervous, and his heartbeat inevitably quickened. How did he feel about Lan Shi? Xiaqing had never thought about it before. Facing the upcoming question for the first time, he became somewhat panicked and confused, and even wanted to run away a little. Unfortunately, Lan Shi did not give Xiaqing a chance to escape. Her hand was still clutching his sleeve, and her eyes were still fixed intently on Xiaqing, full of eager anticipation. Since you have to tell the truth now no matter what I ask, then I'll just ask, okay? Wasn't this a bit too direct? Actually, it's not very nice. Xiaqing also had no idea at all what kind of answer he would give. He really wanted to stop Lan Shi from asking the question, but Lan Shi gave Xiaqing no chance to dissuade her at all. Without any mental preparation, Xiaqing heard Lan Shi ask anxiously. So tell me now, what are the passwords to your bank card and Alipay? Xiaqing was literally gnashing his teeth. That's what you wanted to know? Lan Shi thought about it, then carefully supplemented, oh, also, do you have any other secrets that can't be made public? I mean the kind that are like weaknesses I can use to blackmail you for money if I know them? Tell me those too if you have any. What was that about true feelings existing in this world? Xiaqing felt that he shouldn't have randomly believed in such nonsense. Where in this world is there true affection? In modern society, not to mention smart people, even fools have learned to take advantage of the situation. Lan Shi was extremely excited, feeling that today was her lucky day. For the first time in her annoying cousin Dong Ying's life, she brought her good fortune. She actually gave Xiaqing a subconscious suggestion to tell the truth. After observing and analyzing this fact, Lan Shi quickly accepted the situation and felt even more delighted in her heart. The effectiveness of Dong Ying's subconscious suggestion varied depending on the individual, so Lan Shi was uncertain when Xiaqing would return to normal. But before that, of course, she had to make some money first. She asked Xiaqing for information like his bank card password, and unsurprisingly, despite his reluctant and almost desperate expression, as if he wanted to cover his mouth with his hands, the password kept flowing out of his mouth like an uncontrollable spring. There were too many types of bank cards on Earth, and Lan Shi was afraid of making mistakes. So she took out a small notebook and carefully wrote them down one by one. However, following the principle of kindness, Lan Shi reassured Xiaqing, don't worry, I only have a second-class card with limited transfer limits. I won't use too much of your money. Xiaqing looked at Lan Shi, who was diligently memorizing, and couldn't help but feel furious. Who was this person? He coldly sneered as he watched Lan Shi happily jotting down the password, and then took the opportunity to change the password on his phone when she wasn't paying attention. What's the point of tricking himself with the password? Passwords can be changed. Even those scammers who pull off pyramid schemes know to deceive people's hearts first before deceiving their money. Compared to that, Lan Shi's direct and shameless way of scamming money, what talk is there about sustainable development? Short-sighted, why didn't she understand the potential long-term market? Xiaqing retched with anger, since you're so busy memorizing passwords, I won't disturb you. I'll go to the hospital myself. This person, Lan Shi, was really crossing the river and demolishing the bridge. She didn't even lift her head and casually waved at Xiaqing, sure, goodbye. Take care on your way. But actually, I don't think you need to go to the hospital. Xiacheng felt ashamed that he would consider this kind of person trustworthy. He turned around in anger and decided to go to the garage to get his car. Fortunately, Lanshi seemed to have a moment of conscience and called out to him before he left. Xiacheng, wait. It seems she knows about after-sales service. She knew she should feel remorse, knew she should send him to the hospital, knew she should care about his well-being. Maybe she wasn't beyond redemption. If she showed good behavior afterward, Xiacheng could consider forgiving her for her previous robbery. After all, losing oneself in the face of money is a normal thing. As long as Lanshi still had humanity left in her, he would be willing to be magnanimous. However, Lanshi's voice quickly shattered Xiacheng's illusion. He could hear her confidently saying, "Can you give me a ride to a place on your way?" Liang Di said she's attending a gathering nearby, and it hasn't ended yet. She invited me to join. Lanshi's voice was filled with excitement. I don't have to pay, Liang Di said she's treating. And we can eat to our heart's content. Xiacheng felt that there was no need to save Lanshi anymore. Perhaps the brilliance of human nature simply didn't exist in her. No. Xiacheng coldly rejected Lanshi's plea. Take a taxi yourself. Lanshi didn't insist and responded with an "oh." She turned around and headed towards the taxi stand. Xiacheng rubbed his temples and walked in the opposite direction towards the parking lot. However, for some unknown reason, as he walked, his feet suddenly seemed to act independently, no longer obeying his brain's commands. It was as if they were drawn away from his body, turning around on their own and walking towards Lanshi's direction. Lanshi turned back curiously and asked, "Is there something else?" Visit no, v, 3lb/n. cm for new OVL. No. Xiacheng felt something was incredibly wrong. Besides being compelled to tell the truth, his feet seemed to have a problem. With a stern face, he walked away from Lanshi again, but within a short while, his feet forced him to turn around and return to her side. He tried this back and forth several times, and the result was always the same. He seemed to be under a spell, unable to leave Lanshi. Wherever she went, he automatically followed, unable to stay more than a meter away from her. The situation exceeded Xiacheng's understanding of science, yet this inexplicable phenomenon was happening for real. If he hadn't been drinking at all, Xiacheng would have thought he was hallucinating. Lanshi, unaware of the situation, continued on her way to the taxi stand, while Xiacheng had no choice but to follow closely behind her. Lanshi found Earthmen to be really strange. She had just given the command to go to one end to get a taxi, yet he followed along as she walked. Go in that direction, Xiacheng's voice still sounded calm, but for some reason, he kept trying to take deep breaths as if trying to calm his emotions. Then he looked at Lanshi. You go towards the parking lot. But I want to take a taxi. Walk towards the parking lot with me, Xiacheng rubbed his temples, showing a very frustrated expression. It seemed like he had to compromise, but his tone remained firm. Give me the address, and I'll take you to Liang Di's place. If there was a carpool, that would be great. Lanshi didn't think much and immediately changed direction, going to the parking lot with Xiacheng. Xiacheng's mood was in turmoil, and he didn't know what to do for a moment. He contacted his personal doctor, and after listening to his description, the doctor repeatedly confirmed if he had been drinking. Feeling somewhat angry, Xiacheng hung up the phone and calmed down a bit. Indeed, even if he sought medical help, it seemed unlikely that any doctor could treat this condition. No one would even believe him. It was no longer a simple case of being drugged. He needed a thorough and comprehensive examination. But how could he escape now? Perhaps if he waited a while, he would return to normal? Or maybe he could find an opportunity, and suddenly this strange effect would be lifted? In short, when faced with the inability to stay 1 meter away from Lanshi's side, Xiacheng decided to take her along and fulfill his daily act of kindness by sending her to Liang Di's place. Unfortunately, Xiacheng's hope was soon dashed. The situation of not being able to leave Lanshi's side did not improve just because he happened to accompany her on a trip to Liang Di's for dinner. However, this time, Lanshi expressed her confusion, saying, "Didn't you want to go to the hospital because you were worried? Then go ahead. The dining place is on the 2nd floor, and I can go up by myself. There's no need for you to escort me to the door." He replied, "Do you think?" This time, Xiacheng stated the truth, but little did he know that Lanshi would interpret his words differently. Xiacheng was being too clingy. Lanshi understood this well. As stated in the book The Earthling's Guide to Conquest, once a man has been conquered, he can't help but stick to his partner's side for 24 hours. Naturally, during the honeymoon period, this constant togetherness is a pleasant experience. However, in the long run, some men haven't learned to be independent and find their own path, which can affect both individuals' careers. Lan Shi's mission is to conquer Earth, and as a career-oriented woman, she needs some personal space. Therefore, Xia Qing should have some independence. So she patted Xia Cheng's shoulder with emphasis and said, "Xia Cheng, a man should learn to be independent and have his own career. Only when you live a fulfilling life and attract others can you gain their admiration. You can't accompany me in everything, right? You're not a primary school student who needs a buddy to go to the bathroom. If you want to go to the hospital, go by yourself. Why do you need me to accompany you?" Perhaps feeling a bit embarrassed by Lan Shi's straightforward advice, Xia Qing wore a grimacing expression of patience and said, "I don't want to follow you." But soon enough, Xia Cheng's expression turned desperate, and he added, "But if you don't accompany me to the hospital, then I can only follow you." As expected, as soon as Lan Shi moved, Xia Qing eagerly followed suit. "He's stubborn. Isn't he sticking to me no matter what we do?" After all, she is a princess, and her strong personality charm leads to Xia Cheng's constant pursuit, which is quite reasonable. After some thought, Lan Shi decided to make an exception this time and said, "Forget it, you can follow me this time, but it won't happen again." Xia Cheng seemed like he wanted to say something but ultimately held back. He remained silent and quietly followed along. Lan Shi quickly found the private room where Liang Di was. "Lan Shi! Over here!" Liang Di greeted Lan Shi warmly, but her lively expression became somewhat restrained when she saw the stern-faced Xia Qing behind Lan Shi. She asked, Xia Qing, why are you here too?" After asking, she desperately signaled to Lan Shi with her eyes, seeking an answer. Liang Di originally attended the social gathering out of frustration. This gathering had an admission fee, and she paid it so she could bring 2 female friends along. However, she didn't have high expectations for the gathering and only came to relax. But upon arrival, she realized it was an upscale event. The men attending the gathering all appeared successful and glamorous. She heard that the organizer of this matchmaking event also had requirements for the men's net worth. Several men were dressed in brand-name clothing and looked polished, exuding an air of elitism. Of course, now that Xia Qing was here, those men who originally seemed outstanding were no longer worth noticing. Her boss stood tall with distinctive features. His suit didn't bear any obvious labels, but the quality and cut indicated it was a high-end custom-made garment. It was understated yet carried a peculiar sense of grace and luxury. Coupled with Xia Cheng's aloof demeanor, he gave off an air of nobility that seemed unapproachable. Liang Di couldn't deny that she was Xia Cheng's fangirl and admired him greatly. Xia Cheng was young and handsome, so it was normal for him to use his personal time after work to attend a social gathering. However, he was her boss. Even if it was a gathering of a social nature and everyone present was young, if Xia Qing showed up, the atmosphere would feel a bit strange. Moreover, although Xia Qing wasn't much older than them, Liang Di had attended industry summits with him before and knew that he disliked these kinds of social activities. Most of the time, he wore a cold expression throughout the events. It would have been fine if he simply stayed silent and played the role of a listener, but the problem was that Xia Qing had a strong presence. Even without saying a word, just standing on the side and listening, he couldn't be ignored. Lan Shi, however, remained unfazed and said nonchalantly, he also wanted to come. Liang Di couldn't help but feel puzzled. "By the way, are you usually busy with work? If not, we can hang out more in the evenings. There are some good movies releasing recently, and I can treat you," Lan Shi suggested. Xia Qing felt like a love security guard because he couldn't leave Lan Shi's side by more than a meter. He had to listen to these scenes of people trying to impress her up close. However, he found their attempts cheesy, and they found him annoying. "Sir, are you this young lady's companion? Would you mind if I chat with her?" asked a fresh-looking young man. Xia Qing took a sip of tea and appeared calm. "No, I'm not," he smiled at the person, "I don't mind." The person smiled back. But before they could exchange pleasantries, Xia Qing continued with a look of despair on his face. "Do you want to read Chapter 28 of The Earthling's Guide to Conquest written by Yifiren? Please remember the domain name of the site." The person became puzzled. Why? That feeling of not being able to control the urge to speak the truth came over him again. Xia Qing stared at the person, his expression devoid of emotion. Because I'm already in a bad mood. The person paused, their gaze shifting between Xiaqing and Lan Shi. After a moment, they finally seemed to grasp the clues and found their answer. Are you two lovers arguing? How ridiculous! If lovers fight, then don't come to this gathering. Xiaqing gritted his teeth and endured the reproachful gaze of the other person as he watched them turn and leave. But as one person left, another one came. The newcomer was a muscular man who casually patted Xiaqing's shoulder and said, "Bro, is that your sister? I noticed you've been staring at her. Are you worried that she might meet some unreliable guy?" The stranger looked at Xiaqing and confidently stated, "But bro, you have a good eye. That weakling earlier was definitely not suitable. With his physique, how could he protect your sister if she encounters danger outside? I saw you just drove him away, which shows that you have a unique perspective. But I'm different. With me around, you can rest assured. Do you think I'm a good match for your sister?" Xiaqing really wished that no one would come and strike up a conversation with him, asking him strange questions. He wanted to keep to himself and maintain peace, but clearly, nobody respected his inner thoughts. He wanted to hold back, but his mouth seemed to have a will of its own and uttered a cold reply. "Not suitable." "Why not? Look at us, we have the perfect cute and tough physique mismatch. If your sister is by my side, she'll be absolutely safe. How about you help me be the dominant one?" This time, Xiaqing no longer attempted to lie. He gave up struggling and let the truth reign supreme. She doesn't need the cute and tough physique, she needs the cute and smart one. Anyway, it's not going to work. It's not suitable. I don't agree, and not only will I not help you, but I also plan to sabotage it. Although the muscular man came to the gathering to socialize, his interest in Lan Shi was merely an attempt at striking up a conversation. So, he quickly chose to retreat. In the end, he left with the remark, "Crazy guy, what bad luck," and didn't bother to entangle himself further, turning his head to find other women to talk to. No problem, as long as he didn't feel awkward, it would be others who did. Xiaqing tried to console himself, but as two men left, more men followed. This time, it was a seemingly enthusiastic and persistent man. After chatting with Lan Shi for a while, he looked over at Xiaqing and said, "Sir, do you have anything you want to say to Lan Shi?" He raised an eyebrow at Xiaqing, like a feisty terrier, and deliberately, naturally revealed the Rolex watch on his wrist. "We still have plenty of time. If you're also interested in joining our conversation, you can come along." Xiaqing replied coldly, "I have no interest in joining you guys. But I've noticed that wherever Lan Shi goes, you immediately follow. So, I thought you might be interested in our conversation topics." "I'm not. You guys carry on." This love security guard didn't want to get involved. Xiaqing said it like that. And he acted accordingly. When Lan Shi saw him glance at her coldly, take a sip of tea, stand up, and walk away, just as she had walked about a meter away, he automatically turned around and walked back towards her. In the gaze of Xiaqing and Lan Shi, Xiaqing put on a straight face, attempting to salvage his dignity. "Oh, it's the feng shui of the spot that's good." After saying that, he immediately picked up his teacup and took a sip. But even after finishing the cup of tea, he couldn't help but continue, "Actually, it's not just the feng shui of the spot that's good, but being in this position allows me to hear what you guys are talking about." Xiaqing really wanted to cover his mouth, but doing so would make him look even stranger. So he decided to tough it out and endure the bewildered gazes around him. When a person does something embarrassing, the situation only becomes irreversibly awkward if they show that they're aware of the embarrassment. It's better to forcefully appear natural, preserve one's dignity, and rely on the bystander effect to follow suit and make the situation more bearable. Sure enough, thanks to Xiaqing's nonchalant attitude, the man, after a moment of surprise, burst into laughter. "You're quite humorous." As the man spoke, he casually lifted the hem of his suit, revealing a Hermes belt with a prominent logo. "Of course, we're all friends here. Welcome to join our conversation. I'm just not sure which topics you can engage in and which ones you can't." After speaking with a sarcastic tone, he turned to Lan Shi, wearing a courteous smile. "Lan Shi, you mentioned earlier that you haven't been abroad, right?" "Well, during my university years, I lived in 3 different countries, from England to France to Switzerland. So, I'm familiar with the customs and traditions of that area. Especially Swiss watches, I've done quite a bit of research. Take a look at my watch. Upon reaching this point, he obviously didn't miss the chance to belittle Xiaqing, glancing at him and saying in a condescending tone, "Sorry, I guess this isn't a topic you can discuss, considering there aren't many people with the experience of living in 3 countries like me. I was so engrossed in talking to Lan Shi that I didn't consider you." Heh, Xiaqing felt like he was giving this guy face. Lan Shi might be naive, but he wasn't. "Well, I can't contribute to the conversation," Xiaqing replied with a fake smile. "Living in 3 different countries during university, oh, so you were expelled from the first 2 schools and kept transferring, right? I don't have that kind of experience." The man was hit where it hurt, grinding his teeth, but he had a thick skin and quickly changed the topic, turning to Lan Shi and redirecting the conversation towards his watch. "Let me tell you about watches. This one I have here is the classic Rolex Submariner. It's actually just over 100,000, quite cheap. I could easily wear a $1 million watch, but today I'm wearing this one mainly for a sense of nostalgia." At this point, he provocatively looked at Xiaqing again. "After all, this was the first watch I bought during my student days. I still want to maintain a sense of simplicity. You probably wouldn't understand, right? Not everyone has the financial means to buy a watch like mine." Xiaqing usually didn't get involved in these things unless he couldn't help it. His voice was chilly. "Indeed, I don't understand. The genuine Rolex Submariner has platinum filling in the engravings on the ceramic bezel. Why doesn't your watch have it? Did your sense of nostalgia remove this craftsmanship?" Not long after, the man who was previously strutting around arrogantly slinked away dejectedly. Lan Shi was very angry. "Xiaqing, all those people came to me and said they wanted to be friends, but you scared them away." Xiaqing glanced coldly at Lan Shi and replied, "They didn't want to be friends with you." "Then tell me, what did they want to do?" "They were being friendly." Xiaqing's anger flared up. "There's no such thing as unfounded friendliness. Sometimes friendliness is a fade, and they want something from you based on what they see in you. You're so good-looking, can't you be a bit more cautious? Do you really think the world is only filled with goodness and beauty? You naively think of making friends with them, but all they have on their minds are carnal desires." Xiaqing's mood turned sour. "Be more aware, most men are like that." Lan Shi looked astonished and then retorted, "But you're not like that, Xiaqing. You can't just lump everyone together. Do you really think that way?" Why did she have to ask such a question? If there was a poison that could render him speechless before him, Xiaqing felt he would unquestionably drink it without hesitation. However, reality was cruel. Xiaqing couldn't just walk away from Lan Shi to avoid this question, nor could he tell a lie. His voice came out resolutely, "I'm also a normal man, so of course, I have those thoughts." Lan Shi's eyes widened. "Sleeping? Didn't Xiaqing dislike sleeping?" "Sometimes I do think that way." Xiaqing despondently closed his eyes. His face seemed to emit a wave of heat in response to the uncontrollable truth, and he desperately tried to patch things up with a flurry of words. "But it's not always like that. It only happens occasionally, and it's because you're always around me, doing things and saying things that can be misunderstood. But I can control myself as long as you don't do it frequently." Lan Shi thought she understood, but then she felt confused. She was about to continue questioning when she heard a meow coming from a bag on the table behind her. Could it be a cat? Lan Shi stiffly turned her head and, unsurprisingly, saw a cat poking its head out of a large bag left on the table by an unknown lady. The cat's round eyes were fixed on Lan Shi like it was targeting her. How could a cat be brought to a social gathering? Lan Shi barely had time to think. Her instinctive fear of natural enemies made her plunge into Xiaqing's embrace. In this life-or-death moment, she didn't care about anything else. She just desperately tried to bury herself in Xiaqing's suit, attempting to cover her entire body with it. To her surprise, Xiaqing, for some reason, also froze. And as Lan Shi leaned against his chest, she listened to his heartbeat, which went from steady to rapid and uncontrolled. This is bad, this is bad. If a human's heartbeat is too fast, they will die. So why did Xiaqing suddenly react this way? Lan Shi pondered and could only come up with one possibility. Lan Shi calculated and calculated, but she never expected that Xiaqing was also afraid of cats. Well, last time in the parking lot, Xiaqing didn't confront the cat head-on. This time, the cat had already jumped out of the bag and was slowly approaching Lan Shi and the others. Oh dear, Xiao Yuan, how did you slip out of the bag? Fortunately, just as the situation was critical, the cat's owner came and took the cat away. With the crisis averted, Lan Shi breathed a sigh of relief. However, when he turned to look at Xia Cheng, it was evident that he hadn't recovered from his fear of the cat. Xia Cheng looked at Lan Shi with a shocked expression. Lan Shi leaned towards Xia Cheng's left chest and listened again. Oh no! Xia Cheng's heartbeat not only didn't return to normal, but it started racing again. Lan Shi. He stared at Lan Shi, and his words came out slowly, one by one. It's even difficult for him to speak now. Lan Shi felt extremely nervous. Xia Cheng, are you having trouble breathing? In response, Xia Cheng's voice came out in rough gasps. What were you doing? Taking advantage of someone's vulnerability? I just told you something, didn't you hear me? Control your behavior. I'm a normal man too. What you just did to me was an ambush. If I didn't know you and know that you didn't have any ulterior motives, what you did earlier would be considered sexual harassment, do you know that? It's not just a matter of breathing difficulty anymore, it's suffocating me. Suffocating? That's not good. I need to rescue him quickly. Without thinking too much, Lan Shi immediately tried to push Xia Cheng down to the ground. But even though Xia Cheng was on the verge of suffocation, he somehow mustered up a lot of strength and resisted. What are you doing? Lan Shi explained firmly, your current situation is very dangerous. Being with you is dangerous for me, of course. Oh no, Xia Cheng is starting to talk nonsense. This doesn't make any sense. There's no time to waste. It's a critical moment. In the end, Lan Shi used all his strength to stop Xia Cheng's hand. He didn't care about lying on the ground, he adapted to the situation and seized every second to save precious rescue time. He started performing CPR on Xia Cheng. But it's unclear if the method was wrong or not, because Xia Cheng's breathing sounded even more rapid. His heartbeat also became more irregular. Alarm bells rang in Lan Shi's mind. With this heart rate, it seems like Xia Cheng is really in a critical condition. But soon Lan Shi realized that her worries were unnecessary because although Xia Cheng's heart was pounding fast, he was still alive. The Earthling's Guide to Conquest did not deceive me. Artificial respiration is a very effective first aid method. However, although Xia Cheng was alive, he didn't look too well because his eyes were staring at Lan Shi as if they were about to shoot fire, as if he was about to interrogate her in the next second. Was there something she didn't do well enough? Lan Shi tentatively said, was I a bit slow in my reaction? She immediately assured him, don't worry, next time as soon as your heartbeat accelerates, I'll give you artificial respiration. Unfortunately, her self-praise did not receive Xia Cheng's praise. After hearing Lan Shi's words, he furrowed his brows even tighter and his expression became more displeased. Your problem is not that you're slow in reacting, your problem is that you react too quickly, Xia Cheng said, looking at Lan Shi warily. Stay away from me. Lan Shi felt a little unhappy. I saved your life, don't you even thank me? Xia Cheng coldly replied, you did a good job this time, but next time, don't save me anymore. Then you'll just leave. Before Lan Shi could finish her sentence, Xia Cheng interrupted her expressionlessly, if you don't save me, I won't leave. I'm afraid if you try to save me, I'll leave even faster. Lan Shi didn't understand the logic behind his words. Earthmen were truly unpredictable. But when Xia Cheng asked her to stay away, Lan Shi understood. So she obediently walked away to a distance. However, soon Xia Cheng demonstrated the epitome of saying one thing and doing another. Just as Lan Shi started to walk away, he couldn't wait and followed her as if he had his own free will. But he wouldn't admit it. His face showed a particularly sincere and helpless expression. Why haven't you returned to normal yet? So what if he couldn't help being close to her? He was just making excuses. Find you chapters on nv/lbi.com. He pretended quite convincingly. Look how thoroughly she conquered him. However, this was not a moment for Lan Shi to be complacent because soon a sudden and unusual sound caught her attention. Bang! The sound was muffled and short, hidden amidst the laughter and cheers of the gathering, but the alert Lan Shi still caught it. Almost instinctively, Lan Shi looked around and then focused on a row of cabinets next to the dining table. Without giving Xia Cheng any time to react, she immediately opened the cabinet door and forcefully pushed him inside, then cautiously looked around before swiftly entering the cabinet herself. In practical exercises, she was undoubtedly the #1 on planet Mui. Now, Earthlings faced danger, and it was finally time for her to take action. When the cabinet door closed, it blocked out the outside light, and only a faint glow leaked through the gap in the door, creating a dim atmosphere. And this cabinet was probably used to store fragrances. Lanshi sniffed it with force and caught a scent lingering around her. Xiaqing had no idea how things had escalated to this point. Suddenly, he was forcefully pressed inside the cabinet by Lanshi, and he felt utterly bewildered. Was this all an act? Lanshi had been mischievous day after day. What? Pushing oneself down for artificial respiration was already quite absurd, but fortunately, luck was on their side. The men and women at the gathering had all congregated at the other side of the bar, so there were no witnesses to the scene. They could console themselves that if no one saw it happen, it was as good as not happening. But now, what was the situation? Lan. Xiaqing was about to question Lanshi, but before he could speak, she covered his mouth tightly. She leaned close to his ear and whispered in a hushed voice, "Quiet. Don't go out. There's a robbery and murder happening outside. It's not safe." Robbery and murder? Xiaqing was greatly shocked. His initial reaction was disbelief. In today's society under the rule of law, with the city's public security ranking among the top 3 in the country, how could a robbery and murder occur so brazenly in a restaurant in the CBD? But ever since he met Lanshi, Xiaqing had gradually come to accept that in this world, the answers to some things were often both absurd and simple, and the most unbelievable things could happen. Since Lanshi was his part-time bodyguard, her swift and well-practiced reaction to the situation indicated that she was both alert and experienced. It must be true. This time, Xiaqing didn't struggle to break free. Instead, he stayed quiet. However, the air inside the cabinet was thin, and the lingering scent of the fragrance stored there, with its musky base note, wafted faintly. Xiaqing breathed it in, while Lanshi, afraid that he might act recklessly and rush out, pressed her whole body against him, her hands firmly holding him from behind, creating an ambiguous embrace. She whispered in his ear, oblivious to the situation, her voice barely audible. In the confined space, amidst the ambiguous scent and the moist, warm breath in his ear, Xiaqing felt unable to hide or resist. Being in the cabinet with Lanshi seemed more dangerous than being outside. And Lanshi, as if still unsatisfied, murmured in his ear, "Don't be afraid, I'll protect you." Her resolute and sincere appearance made Xiaqing constantly remind and reassure himself to endure a little longer. Xiaqing endured and said, "I'll give you a bonus when we get back." He glanced at Lanshi, who looked innocent and naive, then averted his gaze. "But in the future, there's no need to always stand in front of me when such situations arise. Protecting others should also be based on one's own safety." Although the situation was somewhat awkward and the posture was ambiguous, at least Lanshi was a responsible bodyguard. In a critical moment like this, she showed such dedication. Afterwards, Xiaqing decided he should present her with a plaque and a bonus. As expected, his affirmation and trust in her at a crucial moment made Lanshi look at him with eyes that seemed to hold stars. For the first time, Xiaqing believed in the saying that eyes were the windows to the soul. In Lanshi's watery, bright black eyes, the message she wanted to convey was about to be spoken. Just as Xiaqing waited for her to say, "This is my duty that I cannot shirk," he heard Lanshi's suppressed voice, unable to contain her excitement, saying, "How much do you intend to give?" He shouldn't have expected someone like Lanshi to understand social customs and atmosphere. However, it didn't take long for Xiaqing to realize that something was amiss with the current atmosphere. Because there was no sign of the expected chaos, panic, and cries for help outside the cabinet. Instead, there was still an atmosphere of laughter and joy, followed by bang, bang bang. Suddenly, Xiaqing had a sense of unease, and he turned to look at Lanshi, who held him tightly with extreme vigilance. Just as he was about to speak, Lanshi once again covered his mouth with a force that almost suffocated him, restricting his movements. "It seems like a team is committing the crime," she whispered in a low voice. "Did you hear it? Gunshots. Several shots in a row. Based on my experience, the first gunshot indicates that the gun is relatively new, followed by the second gunshot. The gun used for the third gunshot is the oldest, indicating that the person holding the gun the third time is the leader. This person could actually come up with such a plausible explanation." During a brief struggle, Xiaqing finally seized the opportunity to speak. He was almost grinding his teeth as he said, "Have you ever considered that it's the sound of opening champagne bottles? As if to verify Xia Cheng's words, just as he finished speaking, cheers could be heard from outside the cabinet. All these bottles of champagne are on my tab. I'm honored to meet so many beautiful ladies at this event. Opening champagne bottles? She quickly searched her knowledge and suddenly realized that she had indeed overlooked this possibility. Outside the cabinet, the man opening the champagne was still boasting, the first bottle has the shortest aging time and the last bottle is the longest. Everyone, taste and see whether you prefer a young or mature flavor. Which one do you like? She faced Xia Cheng's expressionless gaze and laughed awkwardly. At least I got the duration right. She added eagerly, at least I was vigilant. When it comes to safety, it's better to kill 1,000 by mistake than let one slip through. It's better to be safe than sorry. Xia Cheng clearly couldn't be bothered to respond to her. She knew she was in the wrong, having caused a misunderstanding. Now that the truth was revealed, there was no need to continue hiding in the cabinet. However, just as she was about to open the cabinet door and leave with Xia Cheng, he pulled her back. Wait, someone is coming. So what if someone is coming? Xia Cheng's expression seemed at a loss for words. With someone outside, are you planning to leave the cabinet like this? A man and a woman, one in front of the other? He glanced at Shi's disheveled clothing, which had become wrinkled from being curled up inside the cabinet. The enclosed space made her face slightly flushed. If this honorable scene suddenly emerged from the cabinet, what would people think? It was self-evident. Xia Cheng couldn't accept that his upright and innocent reputation would end in such a peculiar way. She didn't understand why Xia Cheng refused to come out of the cabinet when there was no real danger. And when faced with her question, Xia Cheng refused to explain, insisting that they couldn't leave now. However, at this moment, someone indeed arrived outside the cabinet. Even the voice was quite familiar. I didn't agree to break up. I am your boyfriend, and you are not single. You shouldn't be attending this kind of mixer. Number 2. These two people, one in front and one behind, seemed to have walked back to the venue of the mixer from outside. Instead of joining the lively crowd drinking champagne, they chose to argue in front of this row of empty cabinets. Chao En's voice was somewhat straightforward. Shi looked through the crack in the cabinet door and finally saw him holding Liang Di's hand tightly. I never said I agreed to break up. He's actually not dead. Breaking up only requires one party. Liang Di's voice was full of anger, and her eyes were slightly red. I don't want a boyfriend like you. When Xia Cheng asked if you were single, you actually said yes. You don't even acknowledge me as your girlfriend. So of course, I'm single. Besides, there are so many men in the world who are better than you. Take Xia Cheng, for example. He's not far away, but he's 100 times better than you, isn't he? Xia Cheng has everything he wants. He's simply perfect, outstanding in every way, and good-looking too. I should take him as a role model to improve my taste. As the conversation outside the cabinet turned to Xia Cheng, Shi instinctively looked at Xia Cheng beside her. She saw his face, which had been displeased because of curling up inside the cabinet, now wearing a faint smile, as if such compliments were entirely reasonable. And this smile widened after Chao En's next words. Xia Cheng is indeed handsome, wealthy, and exceptional in every way. Xia Cheng's smile grew stronger, and it was at this moment that he noticed Shi's puzzled gaze. He immediately frowned unhappily and turned his attention to the crack in the cabinet. Why are you looking at me? What does that look in your eyes mean? What? Don't agree with what they're saying? Shi was honest. Although you are quite good, I don't think you're perfect. If I really had to nitpick, I could still find some flaws. Xia Cheng seemed to be out of breath once again, but fortunately, he managed to restrain some emotion and calmed down. He glared at Shi and then looked through the gap in the cabinet door. At least the employees I hired myself fully acknowledge me. At this moment, Xia Cheng felt truly proud. Indeed, he had casually asked Chao En if he was single not long ago, and Chao En had answered that he was single. However, any concerns about such concealment had already vanished upon hearing Chao En's unhesitant acknowledgement and praise. Xia Cheng glanced at Shi, who still seemed somewhat bewildered, and felt that his luck in choosing and employing people wasn't so bad after all. Although Chao En hadn't shared his relationship with Liang Di, Xia Cheng believed that receiving such high praise and evaluation from both Liang Di and Chao En was already a rare two-way trust between an employee and a boss. And Chao En's subsequent words deeply moved Xia Cheng. Liang Di had been single all along, accompanying her boss Xiacheng on their journey of solitude. However, now she had found love and was no longer single. She was hesitant to break the news to Xiacheng, fearing it would be a sudden shock for him. She worried that he would feel left behind, as if the entire universe had found companions while his ally had abandoned him mercilessly. As Liang Di expressed her concerns, she turned to Chaowen and said, "Xiacheng is not just my boss, but also my friend. I feel that it would be unfair to him if I were to tell him about my relationship while he is managing the company all by himself. I need to find a more suitable opportunity to discuss our situation." As Liang Di explained her thoughts, the initially angry Lan Shi seemed to soften. She gave Chaowen a stern look, and it appeared that the tension between them was about to dissipate beneath the moonlit night. These words not only resonated with Liang Di but also touched the tender part of Xiacheng's heart. He never expected Chaowen to care so much about his feelings. The only remaining concern he had completely vanished. Once Chaowen returned from his leave, Xiacheng decided to celebrate and take care of him, including his girlfriend Liang Di. Xiacheng couldn't help but glance at Lan Shi and exclaimed, "Look at the difference between you and other employees." Just as he was about to take advantage of the situation and offer some on-site guidance to Lan Shi, Chaowen, who was still outside the cabinet, spoke again. "Xiacheng is indeed exceptional, and I understand why you admire and appreciate him. But he may not be suitable for you because he might be gay." Liang Di's face expressed astonishment from outside the cabinet. Inside the cabinet, Xiacheng's smile gradually froze. However, Chaowen was unaware of the storm brewing inside the cabinet. He remained calm and carefully chose his words, saying, "Have you ever heard the saying? 100% pure gold is actually not hard, but soft. The purer it is, the more malleable it becomes." Xiacheng, being the epitome of perfection, a man made of pure gold, has not been in a relationship for so many years. I believe it might be because he doesn't necessarily like women. "So, you suspect that he might be gay?" Liang Di's face showed a pensive expression. "Now that you mention it, it does seem quite reasonable. No wonder he has stayed away from women for so many years, it's highly probable that he's gay." The cabinet grew hot, and Lan Shi, feeling uncomfortable and hungry, struggled to stay focused. She didn't pay much attention to the conversation between Chaowen and Liang Di outside the cabinet, only catching a few key words here and there. From what she gathered, Chaowen was indeed alive, and the young couple had reconciled. Lan Shi desperately wanted to leave the cabinet, but Xiacheng had made it clear that everyone had to leave before she could come out. However, Chaowen and Liang Di seemed to be engrossed in their analysis and stood there without immediately leaving. Lan Shi was in a daze, but just as she closed her eyes to rest, the words "deep cabinet" suddenly caught her attention. A deep cabinet? Lan Shi looked up at the cabinet she was in. Although it was short in height, it was indeed deep enough to conceal herself and Xiacheng. It really was a deep cabinet. In that instant, Lan Shi was in awe of Chaowen's incredible foresight. "Chaowen, you're something else." To be able to guess that they were hiding in the deep cabinet even without Lan Shi and Xiacheng revealing themselves. It was amazing. However, since Chaowen and Liang Di already knew that they were hiding in the cabinet, there was no need to continue hiding. Unfortunately, Lan Shi was astonished by Chaowen's uncanny abilities and it left her speechless. He tightly pursed his lips, his expression constantly changing, and his face filled with uncertainty. Lan Shi couldn't help but shake his hand and said, "Xiacheng. They know we're in the cabinet. We don't need to hide anymore. We can come out." Looking back on this memory, Xiacheng felt a sense of confusion. His emotions had been like a roller coaster ride, and before he could regain his composure and restrain himself, Lan Shi, who was beside him, excitedly said a few words and then pushed open the cabinet door and rushed out. "Chaowen! You're truly admirable." Xiacheng heard her excited voice filled with undisguised admiration. "How did you know that Xiacheng and I were in the deep cabinet? And also, Liang Di told me that you were dead, but now I see you alive." "That's great." "So, are you able to perceive everything so accurately now, even sensing that Xiacheng was in the deep cabinet, because you've gained some profound understanding between life and death and become an enlightened being?" Chaowen's gaze, like a torch, turned to Liang Di. "I was dead?" Liang Di looked embarrassed. "I said you should treat it as if you were dead. Haven't you heard the saying? A qualified ex should be treated as if they were dead." Liang Di coughed. "Now you've been specially reinstated, so I've approved your request to fake your death." Xiacheng really wanted to pretend that everything outside the cabinet didn't exist. He wanted to stay in the cabinet and wait until everyone outside had left before coming out without any psychological burden. However, the annoying problem had not improved. Almost as soon as Lan Shi went out, Xia Cheng's feet began to move without his control. 5 minutes later, under the bewildered gazes of Chaowen and Liang Di, Xia Cheng made an effort to maintain his composure, dignity, and calmness, and was forced to crawl out of the cabinet. For everything that happened afterwards, Xia Cheng was unwilling to reminisce. He only remembered tidying his clothes, still maintaining good manners and composure even in this situation. Even when very upset, one must remain calm. Because as long as he remained composed and steady, he could make even the unreasonable seem convincing. The cabinet is quite deep, Xia Cheng remembered himself commenting as such. As soon as his words fell, Chaowen and Liang Di had awkward and stuttering looks on their faces as they hurriedly voiced their agreement. Yes, very deep. Chairman Xia, what a coincidence. Ha ha. He he. Xia Cheng gazed coldly at his two subordinates. The kind of mutual pursuit between employees and bosses that was supposed to exist was clearly impossible. He said expressionlessly, but I like women. Yes, women are good, women are good. Haha, of course. Chairman Xia likes women and women like Chairman Xia too. This is the very definition of mutual pursuit. You still have the audacity to say that. The only one still cluelessly daydreaming was Lan Shi, as she continued grinning foolishly. The situation seemed perfectly friendly on the surface. Xia Cheng maintained a polite smile, but he felt extremely upset inside. Fortunately, when God closes a door for you, he opens a window. Having reached this predicament, Xia Cheng finally received the only piece of good news that night. His strange compulsions to tell the truth and follow Lan Shi wherever she went had finally gotten some relief. He had gone back to normal. Xia Cheng naturally did not feel assured and went to the hospital to get a full physical exam overnight. Only after the test results confirmed everything was normal could he finally set his mind at ease completely. Today, having returned to Xian Enterprise early in the morning and sitting back in his office chair, the familiar systematic environment and work pattern finally allowed Xia Cheng to gradually relax. However, someone broke this rare tranquility in the afternoon. Xia Cheng received a call from Dong Ying. Dong Ying was not one to admit defeat. She had barely escaped from the cat siege last time, still irritated when she looked back at it afterwards. Cats were the archenemies of people from planet Muyu, yet Earthlings all thought cats were so adorable that they inflated their value, even gifting them to others. Dong Ying completely disagreed with Xia Cheng's so-called gift. Not only did she extremely dislike cats, she had even hallucinated seeing Lan Shi's figure flash by because of them, feeling utterly ominous. She suspected Xia Cheng's aura clashed with hers, but that only made her more determined to conquer this man, eventually molding him into her perfect lover. But before that, she would have to get rid of the prettier female employee by Xia Cheng's side first. Boss Dong, our investigation confirms there is indeed a female employee constantly by Xia Cheng's side. He often takes her along to meetings and outings, and they have been spotted spending personal time together many times. She does look very beautiful. We've compiled her photos and information, would you like to see? When her subordinate presented the materials, Dong Ying merely glanced at the cover page without opening it. Dong Ying was proud and confident. In this universe, only Lan Shi was qualified to compete with her. As for anyone else, they were still unworthy of Dong Ying's concern as a rival. Just an ordinary female Earthling employee, how pretty could she be? Besides, Xia Cheng had said her brain didn't work well. Although she intended to get rid of the woman, there was no need for Dong Ying to take action personally. You, go find this woman, give her some money, make her disappear, don't let her appear before my eyes again to irritate me. Dong Ying had seen this cliched scheme played out far too many times in Earthling TV shows, evidently a conventional sequence of operating procedures that had gone through multiple validations for effectiveness. Moreover, that woman hadn't succeeded in being with Xia Cheng either, and Xia Cheng wouldn't marry her. Unable to move up or make money, she was better off taking the 5 million yuan payoff. Her subordinate had just been about to leave when Dong Ying conceived another idea and called him back. Wait. Record the entire negotiation process with that woman and give me the live stream link. Sure enough, not long after, her capable subordinate sent over a live stream link. Boss Dong, I'm already at Xian Enterprise and have asked that female employee out. Just waiting for her to show up now. Dong Ying smiled, very satisfied. Naturally she didn't want the live stream link for herself to watch. Her arrogance meant she looked down quite a bit on the Earthling whom Xia Cheng described as mentally inept, so she would never demean herself by tuning in to watch the other party. She only wanted the link to conveniently forward it to Xiacheng. Just to make sure he wouldn't miss it, she thoughtfully gave him a phone call too. Earthlings were just so easily tempted. As long as Xiacheng saw this woman choose money without the slightest hesitation, he would know such Earth females were unreliable. If he wanted to find someone, it still had to be someone rich and powerful like herself who wouldn't be constrained by material things to have a pure, unadulterated romance. As for herself, she didn't need to do anything, only wait quietly for Xiacheng to have an epiphany after watching the livestream. Xiacheng, I'll send you a livestream later for you to watch carefully, then you'll know some people's true colors. After leaving him with that line over the phone, Dong Ying sent over a livestream link. Was it something related to their partnership? Xiacheng frowned slightly as he tapped open the link. Beyond his expectations, the screen showed the coffee shop under the Xian Enterprise building, the camera aimed straight at an empty seat. Just what was going on here? Right when Xiacheng was about to close the confusing livestream link, a familiar voice came from the camera. You wanted to see me? Said you have something to give me? I don't know you. It turned out to be Lan Shi's voice. Xiacheng halted his attempt to exit the livestream. Next was the voice of an unfamiliar man. The other party did not show his face or waste any time with pleasantries, getting straight to the point. I'll give you 5 million yuan. Resign from Xian Enterprise, stay away from Xiacheng, and don't ever appear by Xiacheng's side again. As long as you agree, sign the contract right away and I'll transfer the money over immediately. Xiacheng took a deep breath. So this was an attempt to buy off Lan Shi to get her to leave? 5 million yuan, was Dong Ying insane? Although this method was extremely cliché, Xiacheng scoffed at it. He also didn't understand why Dong Ying wanted to create such a childish act. But even if he was reluctant to admit it, Xiacheng still felt a subtle tension rising inside him along with the secretion of adrenaline that instant. For someone like Lan Shi who had seldom seen so much money in her life, the temptation of 5 million yuan upfront would probably get her to do anything. Lan Shi's answer was self-evident. He couldn't blame her for this. After all, not just anyone could withstand a test like this, let alone a girl as poor as Lan Shi without any background. Logically that made sense, but Xiacheng still couldn't help feeling irritated inside. Extremely irritated. He didn't want to keep watching this boring livestream, but right before he put his phone down, Lan Shi's righteous and adamant voice came through the camera. You must be dreaming. Even if you gave me 5 million, I still wouldn't leave this company or Xiacheng. Forget 5 million, even 10 million or 20 million, I wouldn't agree. Xiacheng froze. Lan Shi's reaction greatly exceeded his expectations. Not everyone could resist the temptation of 5 million yuan, especially a poverty-stricken girl like Lan Shi without any background. Yet she didn't even hesitate for a second before refusing such a generous offer, not wavering at all. What's more, she didn't need to give anything up for this offer. In that instant, Xiacheng had mixed emotions churning inside. He was aware Lan Shi relied on him heavily, and within that reliance there was more or less some ambiguous sentiment bordering on crossing the line. Perhaps the socially inept Lan Shi still hadn't realized her feelings yet, but Xiacheng had already sensitively discerned Lan Shi's unusual attitude toward him early on. His original approach had been to keep an appropriate distance, give verbal reminders, and pretend not to notice using a cold treatment method. But now, gazing at Lan Shi on the livestream who was cluelessly rejecting 5 million yuan to leave his side with not a shred of hesitation, the emotion stirring inside Xiacheng roiled somewhat chaotically. Although Lan Shi was naive and had obvious communication barriers, it was perhaps precisely because of this that she was able to discard the pollution of worldly sophistication and fame and fortune in society and make the most naive choice. It was a sincere feeling without any consideration of reward or selfishness. Even if he could not respond, Xiacheng felt that he should still sincerely thank Lan Shi for her appreciation and recognition. Seeing the ending here, the subsequent live broadcast was naturally no longer necessary to watch. Xiacheng closed the live stream link and flipped to his electronic schedule to frown and make adjustments. He decided to speed up his pace in his busy week this week in order to free up a day on Saturday to personally fulfill his promise and take Lan Shi to an amusement park. Naturally, once the atmosphere of the amusement park was good and Lan Shi boldly confessed, Xiacheng would still reject it, but at least in this environment, Lan Shi would also be able to leave without regret and leave behind a beautiful memory. This was what Xiacheng thought, and what he did. With the huge amount of work this week, Xiacheng no longer had time to think about anything else. He took a sip of black coffee and plunged into his work. Lan Shi inexplicably received a call from the man opposite, and the other party insisted on giving Lan Shi a big gift and had to meet to talk. The place was agreed at the coffee shop under the company building, with people coming and going, and it was broad daylight, very safe. Lan Shi thought about it and decided to sneak down to see what was going on. She never imagined that the other party would give her 5 million as soon as she opened her mouth, asking her to leave Xiacheng, and even hinted that there was room for negotiation with more money. Lan Shi naturally rejected it outright. Who is he trying to fool? She only has a Type 1 bank card. The daily transfer limit is 10,000 yuan, and the annual transfer limit is 200,000 yuan. Just 5 million would take 25 years to transfer. The man who came to negotiate looked to be in his 40s, and it was unknown whether he would be dead or alive after 25 years. 25 years. Xiacheng might have been tortured to death by her after they got married. She could happily inherit his estate. Still looking at this 5 million? Lan Shi wisely and coldly rejected it, driving the person away. However, good things always come in pairs. Not long after returning to her desk, Lan Shi received an internal call from Xiacheng. After arranging a pile of data analysis work, Xiacheng paused. Keep your time free on Saturday. Lan Shi was stunned. Is this going to be overtime? Xiacheng said unpleasantly, I'll take you to the amusement park. Aren't you always staring at me wanting to go to the amusement park? He cleared his throat, his voice becoming somewhat unnatural, but still very calm. I did promise that at first. A person's value lies in their integrity. Since I said so, I will take you there early and get it over with, but there will be no more good things like this in the future. Do you understand? I understand. Lan Shi was overjoyed. Her previous crazy hinting tactics were indeed effective. In dealing with things in the future, it seemed that she could use this trick 2 more times. Moreover, Xiacheng was quite good. Lan Shi felt that after marrying him, she would be reluctant for him to die too. However, Lan Shi's luck was really good today. In addition to these good things, Liang Di stopped Lan Shi just before getting off work. She looked at Lan Shi carefully. Are you free tonight? I'll treat you to dinner. Lan Shi always has time for a free dinner anytime. It wasn't Lan Shi's first time having dinner with Liang Di, but this time, Liang Di was much more restrained than before. She hesitated several times, as if wanting to say something but stopping herself, until this meal was nearing its end that she finally seemed to not be able to help but whisper, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about me and Chao and being together. Theoretically speaking, you were still our matchmaker. If it wasn't for you beating him up, I wouldn't have gone to take care of him every day, and we wouldn't have fallen in love over time. But what's the deal with you and Xiacheng? After seeing Lan Shi and Xiacheng sneak out of the closet one after the other that day, Liang Di was speechless due to the shock, and because she felt guilty about her and Chao En's secret office romance, she did not raise questions on the spot at that time. Afterwards when she got home, the more she thought about this matter, the more bizarre it seemed. Thinking of this, Liang Di stared at Lan Shi in front of her. What is your relationship now? Liang Di was Xiacheng's sister, one of their own. She was someone who needed to be won over. The manual said that for one's own people, one could say some truths, because it is common for Earthlings to share their emotional experiences with their own, and can even instantly shorten the distance between two people in a short period of time, making the relationship between them even more solid. After taking a bite of dessert, Lan Shi decided to be completely open and honest. I conquered him. Liang Di gasped, almost spewing the milk tea in her mouth. She felt that her secret office love affair with Chao En was already exciting enough, and didn't expect Lan Shi's situation to be even more outrageous. But on second thought, it didn't seem to be wrong at all. Lan Shi was so beautiful that not only men, even Liang Di herself often couldn't help but be distracted by her face. Then Liang Di thought of a problem. So when you two were in the closet that day, were you? Although Lan Shi had a good relationship with her, Xiacheng was still her boss after all. Liang Di waited slightly and euphemistically said, it was because of some exciting reasons, right? Two people inexplicably hiding in a closet during a dinner event, this would look questionable to any normal person's eyes. Liang Di felt she was hinting enough, but unbeknownst to her, these words were completely differently understood by Lan Shi. Hiding in the closet was because she had mistakenly thought there was a shooting outside at the time. Was a shooting exciting? For Lan Shi, who was used to close combat training classes, firearms were of course very common, but now that she was embedded on Earth, all answers should still be carefully considered, and she must not use the experience of Mayustar to infer Earth. Lan Shi's brain spun rapidly. According to the public security section of the Earthling Conquest Manual, shootings were not common occurrences in human society, so naturally they would be exciting in the eyes of Earthlings. Thinking of this, Lanshi solemnly nodded. Yes, I thought it was exciting gunshots at first, but later I found out there was nothing exciting about it. She didn't know why, but just as Lanshi was about to continue explaining, she was interrupted by Liang Di's shocked expression. Gunshots? Could guns be kicked instead of held by hands? Of course you use your hands. Yes, of course there were gunshots. Lanshi continued, but in the end there were no actual shots fired. But Liang Di had a "I can't hear you" expression on her face as she covered her ears. If it's indecent, I won't listen. You don't have to say any more, I already know why you two would hide in the closet. As for whether the gun successfully went off in the end, you really don't need to report that to me. As expected of Xia Cheng's sister, Liang Di was clever as ice and snow. Without Lanshi having to explain herself, she already completely understood the cause and effect of the matter, saving Lanshi the effort of explaining. However, sharing this kind of thing really did bring people closer together. Because after Lanshi spoke, Liang Di looked at her worriedly, but normal men usually won't force girls to do such things in public places. After all, if discovered, men with thicker skin won't have issues, but girls' social lives could be ruined, reputation and public opinion completely destroyed. Besides, the image I had of Xiacheng seems worlds apart from this. He looks so abstinent, yet secretly he plays around like this. Saying this, Liang Di grabbed Lanshi's hand. Lanshi, just listening to these details from you, I can already feel that he is very experienced while you are still new to things. Are you being tricked by him? Let me tell you, you especially cannot cater to him in everything, you can't pamper the other completely. You must never do things that go against your heart or put yourself at risk just to please him. I know you probably cherish Xiacheng a lot, but that doesn't mean you should let Xiacheng have his way. You still have to take the initiative, otherwise I'm worried you'll get hurt. Liang Di said hesitantly. Lanshi, you understand what I mean, right? In a relationship, it's appropriate to make men contribute more, whether it's money or time or energy and attention. Of course she understood. How could she not understand? Don't worry. Xiacheng has put in a lot. In order to make herself seem more credible, Lanshi gave an example on the spot. For example, financially, Xiacheng gives me extra money every month in addition to my salary. However, for some reason, instead of relaxing her frown when she heard this, Liang Di's brows knitted even tighter and her expression became more serious. Are you saying that Xiacheng, every month, for your current relationship, gives you additional fixed money? The latest chapter of Yifei Rant's work Earthling's Guide to Conquest was first updated by all new chapters nnv.bin.com. However, this explanation did not bring relief to Liang Di. On the contrary, her expression became even more solemn, with a sudden realization of solidarity against a common enemy in her eyes. Liang Di had thought that Lanshi and Xiacheng were in a romantic relationship. However, she did not expect to accidentally uncover this shocking truth. This was not a love affair. It was clearly monthly allowance for being a mistress. No wonder there would be such an outrageous request to hide in a closet and have sexual relations in broad daylight. He was not treating Lanshi as a girlfriend at all, but purely as a mistress to be toyed with. And Lanshi actually thought Xiacheng had put in a lot. Liang Di had been in Xiacheng's fan club for a long time. Despite working full-time, she had never lost faith in Xiacheng until now. Despite all her calculations, she did not expect Xiacheng to be this kind of person. It was truly a case of you can know a person's face but not their heart. She felt sorry for Lanshi. She was clearly still wearing rose-tinted glasses when looking at Xiacheng, completely unaware of how inappropriate this relationship was for her, how much she was being taken advantage of, and how utterly devoid of future prospects it all was. Seeing the still naive-looking Lanshi in front of her, Liang Di cursed Xiacheng 10,000 times in her heart. How could a person do something like this? She had to hurry and notify her fan club sisters. Quickly avoid this scumbag. As for Lanshi, she was clearly brainwashed by Xiacheng at this point, with filters so thick and heavy that it would take a long-term plan to make her see the light. Lanshi did not know what was going on. Liang Di was Xiacheng's relative and had originally admired Xiacheng so much, but after having dinner with her, his attitude took a sudden turn and he criticized him for half an hour. The Guide to Conquering Earthlings said that although most of the time relatives on Earth have common interests, sometimes there are also conflicts of interest. Therefore, the relationships between relatives in human society are both united and opposed, in short, very complicated. She could not understand these profound and subtle relationships for a while. Therefore, in response to Liang Di's words, she mostly nodded obediently. After all, the chapter on male-female relationships on Earth in the guide was too long. She had not read it in full, only skimmed a few subtitles. Now Liang Di stated categorically, it must be because she herself was not proficient enough to master the essence of male-female relationships on Earth. In short, you can't let him manipulate you and look down on you like this. So what if he has money? Does having money mean he can do whatever he wants without caring about other people's feelings? Can he insult people like this? Can he shirk responsibility to you? Liang Di looked at her with an expression of hatred for iron not becoming steel. Shi, if you want to have a normal equal relationship, you can't keep letting him pay. Although money is a kind of compensation for your emotions, the more this happens, the more he will feel at ease and think that he doesn't need to care about you or be responsible to you. Your relationship has become a business transaction. Huh? How did it become a business transaction? Shi asked puzzledly, shouldn't our relationship be a conquest relationship? As Liang Di looked at the innocent Shi in front of her, she felt her head hurt a little. Her appearance and figure naturally conquered Xiaqing. For such a cold and abstinent man like Xiaqing to even eat the grass by the nest, he had to spend money to keep her every month. It shows that in bed, Shi had absolutely conquered Xiaqing, but conquering a man's lower body is useless. Conquering this man's heart is the key. Liang Di was a face fanatic. She had no resistance to a silly beauty like Shi. Moreover, Liang Di was originally the type to stand up for the underdog. Although the last time she stood up for someone went wrong, afterwards Liang Di still punished the scumbag who let down her friend. Now seeing a fellow woman like Shi being so bullied, and thinking of Shi's upbringing in an orphanage in the remote mountains with no backers whatsoever, she felt as if they were birds of a feather and strongly identified with her situation, giving rise to a strong desire to protect Shi. Therefore, Liang Di really spoke from the heart. Do you want to completely conquer this man? If you do, you have to show your stance and not use his money. When you two go out, you should take him to places that you can afford. You pay. Only then can he look at you in a new light. Feel your courage, determination, and backbone. Let him know that you don't care about his money. You are with him purely based on feelings. Sure enough, the more she talked, the more enlightened Shi's eyes became, as if thinking, so that's how it is. Poor girl, no one must have taught her these things growing up in such deprived circumstances. Liang Di held Shi's hand. You must spend money yourself. This conveys a kind of message. I believe Xiaqing will eventually feel it, especially if you want to formally date and marry him. You have to respect yourself even more and make him realize that you are an independent woman and he must respect you. She really had an epiphany. So to completely conquer a man and eventually get married, she had to avoid using his money before marriage and spend her own money? The guide to conquering Earthlings was so thick and heavy, completely inconvenient to carry around. So after Liang Di left, Shi, who refused to admit defeat, immediately took out her phone. You can find anything online. She searched and indeed found the answer. If a woman uses too much of a man's money before marriage, it will make the man feel that she is not frugal or suitable for homemaking. Men work hard to earn money outside, and even if they are willing to spend money on women, women should not take it for granted. Showing appropriate thoughtfulness will move the man. Occasionally taking the initiative to pay yourself will earn more respect from the man and make him want to marry her. This is how I married well, with an image of being frugal and virtuous. As for after marriage, half of my husband's money is mine and I can spend however I want. I just needed to contribute a little before marriage to gain a lot in return. If you sisters also want to marry well, you can pay to scan the code. Our class on marrying well will start soon. She solemnly closed the web page, instantly understanding everything. No wonder she had conquered Xiaqing for so long, but he still hadn't made a move towards marriage. The crux of the issue turned out to be here. Then she would spend some money on Xiaqing. After all, Liang Di also said to just spend what was within her means. It just so happened that Xiaqing was going to take her to an amusement park that weekend. Wasn't this a ready-made opportunity for Shi to show what she's made of? When she got home, she could study the guide more and marry Xiaqing early. It would be a breeze. Shi had resolutely rejected the 5 million that was within grasp for her own sake. She also trusted herself so much and was reciprocating. Since Xiaqing had agreed to take her to the amusement park that weekend, he would naturally keep his word. Moreover, recently Xiacheng had made an appointment with a reliable and trustworthy behavioral interventionist. In the future, Lanxi's social behavioral intervention could be handed over to a specialized teacher, and the private time Xiacheng spent with Lanxi in the future would be greatly reduced. For this reason, it was natural that he would keep his distance from Lanxi. Therefore, today's outing to finally fulfill their promise of going to the amusement park together was not inappropriate at all. Lanxi had a pitiful background and tragic experiences that deserved sympathy. Her dependence and affection for him was also completely understandable. But Xiacheng still hoped that she would soon understand the boundaries and continue her own life properly. After all, romance was not currently on Xiacheng's agenda. Now, Xiacheng's meteorological database software had taken shape and launching was only a matter of time. Currently in the market, the commercial demand for such software was huge: transportation, agriculture, tourism, large commercial activities. There was huge demand across various scenarios for weather data prediction, while the customized personalized analysis services provided by Chengxian were even more capable of providing targeted services to buyers, which currently had huge commercial potential. Once the software was announced and launched, Xiacheng would end his years of keeping a low profile. He would formally step into the spotlight and no longer conceal his sharpness. Next, he would start fundraising step by step according to plan, and eventually complete the IPO. Career was the most important thing for a man. Now was not the time for romance. Although Lanxi deserved sympathy, she was still far from Xiacheng's ideal type. She was indeed shockingly beautiful, but having a partner who was too beautiful was not good either. It could even easily lead to jealousy and accusations that he was a superficial man who only cared about looks, which was completely unnecessary. There were several amusement parks with complete facilities and mature amusement projects in Rong City. Xiacheng chose the one farthest from Chengxian. At least this way, the probability of running into acquaintances was very low. Get your avrite ovals at no/v/e/lbn.com. Although Xiacheng believed that he had no indecent thoughts about Lanxi and was just fulfilling his promise to take her to the amusement park, if someone happened to see him with her, they would surely get ideas. Better safe than sorry. Lanxi was naturally very excited and looking forward to being able to go to the amusement park with him. Because on the very day that Xiacheng notified her, she informed Xiacheng in the afternoon that she had already bought 2 tickets to the amusement park, so Xiacheng didn't need to buy them anymore. "I'll pay for everything today." ? Lanxi waved her hand directly. No need. At times like these, there was no room for hesitation at all. I did a very thorough guide a few days in advance. As Lanxi spoke, she shook the notebook in her hand. I took notes of key points of attention. This guide is definitely the most cost-effective. Won't waste a penny. My budget is more than enough. Seeing this, although Xiacheng's face showed some confusion, he did not insist anymore. Very good, it seemed she was gradually feeling his change. According to my guide, in order for the park tickets to be worthwhile, we should play the park's best activities first. As Lanxi spoke, she flipped open her guide that she made, based on route, distance and level of recommendation. We'll go on the roller coaster first. Lanxi, who was completely socially awkward, was actually able to learn to consider others and be meticulous enough to make detailed plans in advance. Xiacheng said he was not surprised, but he was even touched. He had read a lot of books about behavioral intervention for autism spectrum disorders before, and he knew that once patients like Lanxi were willing to actively learn to integrate into society, they should be encouraged and supported. What's more, Lanxi was clearly unresponsive in other matters, but was so concerned about going to the amusement park with him and even insisted that Xiacheng not pay any money. The feelings implicit here were as obvious as the sun in the sky. She was testing the waters. But the more this was the case, the more one should not lose one's head. Since he and Lanxi were just between colleagues and friends, taking turns paying the expenses was normal. Now that she wanted to pay, let her pay. After all, the expenses involved in the amusement park were not expensive enough for Lanxi to afford. Considering that she had already bought the tickets she should have bought before, today's expenses would be limited to meals at most, so Xiacheng decided to go easy on eating some simple meals. So today's plan was to simply accompany Lanxi to check off some iconic amusement park attractions. Xiacheng thought this would be a very easy task, until Lanxi pulled him to the long line for the roller coaster. It was completely understandable that Lanxi hadn't been to an amusement park much. Xiacheng looked at her patiently and explained, "This line is the regular line. You can go through the fast pass lane if you buy fast passes." Lanxi nodded, her expression very calm. I know. Then where's your fast pass? Didn't you buy all the tickets in advance? Xiacheng rubbed his eyebrows in frustration. Forget it, Lan Shi was indeed unreliable. He would have to buy the fast passes himself. However, bad things come in pairs. Xiacheng never expected that the fast passes would actually be sold out. It's peak season recently. People who entered the park bought fast passes in advance. The on-site fast pass sales channel is already sold out, the staff explained with a smile. So you can only line up now. Staring at the endless line, Xiacheng fell silent. It looked like he would have to give up today. However, Lan Shi saw Xiacheng's silence as something completely different. Great, she had successfully attracted Xiacheng's attention with her frugal image. The Guide to Conquering Earthlings said that sharing expenses with Earthmen and being meticulous about money would be crucial in getting Earthmen to consider forming a family with her. This would demonstrate a woman's virtue of thrift and planning, which was most attractive to men. Lan Shi decided to demonstrate her virtue and planning ability in full. She patted Xiacheng comfortingly on the shoulder. Xiacheng, you have to be frugal with money. We don't spend money on unnecessary things like fast passes if we can avoid it. Otherwise, when we go bankrupt in the future, life will be very difficult. Sure enough, no woman had probably ever said this to Xiacheng before. No woman had ever sincerely wanted to save money for Xiacheng from the bottom of her heart like this. Lan Shi saw that he looked genuinely shocked. He probably thought of the risk of bankruptcy and immediately frowned. Why would I go bankrupt? If one does not plan ahead, one is bound to have worries close by. We always have to assess risks and be prepared for the worst, Lan Shi said cheerfully. But don't worry, I've already planned out life after your bankruptcy, so you don't need to worry. Lan Shi was not joking. To demonstrate her planning skills, she had stayed up last night doing her homework. The economy is declining now and jobs are hard to find. And since you've bankrupted your company, ordinary people wouldn't dare hire you. So after bankruptcy, you can blaze a new trail and switch careers directly. Seeing the grim look on his face at the prospect of bankruptcy, Lan Shi could tell Xiacheng was interested in her plans, but he still wanted to appear calm. So she saw him turn to look at her expressionlessly. Oh, you're pretty capable, already thinking about my post-bankruptcy career for me? So what can I switch to? Of course! Lan Shi was overjoyed. I've got it all arranged for you, and I'm putting your abilities to use to be a fitness coach at the gym in the morning. You have a good physique and rich fitness experience to convince people to take your classes. Be a waiter at a high-end Western restaurant at lunch. You've been to lots of high-end Western restaurants before, so you can definitely introduce the menu fluently. Be a luxury brand salesperson at the mall in the afternoon. You used to wear these brands. Anyway, so helping customers pick out clothes will definitely be a breeze, and there's a lot you can do at night. Be a premium wine steward at a bar, or accompany rich women at a club. You could even be a male model at a KTV. Perhaps her words gave Xiacheng food for thought about bankruptcy, leaving him breathless. He glared at Lan Shi, his chest heaving violently, seemingly unable to speak for a long time. Lan Shi comforted, it's okay, with me at the company, bankruptcy is generally unlikely, but we still have to start learning to be thrifty now. I can teach you hands-on. With someone like you at the company, I'm even more worried about going bankrupt. Xiacheng thought to himself. Looking at the long winding roller coaster line only made him feel more hopeless. Dong Ying had been having a streak of bad luck recently. Not only had Xiacheng rejected her advances, but she had also failed in her attempt to bribe and turn Xiacheng's female employee, despite offering a high price. President Dong, that woman didn't want money at all. She treats money like dirt. And she's very beautiful too. It seems like she truly loves Xiacheng. We won't be able to break them up that easily. Seeing her subordinate who she had sent to negotiate, Dong Ying was very dissatisfied. There's a saying on Earth, there's no couple that can't be broken up, only third parties that don't try hard enough. By human standards, this subordinate was actually considered a very capable and excellent employee. But humans could only ever reach a certain level. They still lacked that little bit extra. As a prominent figure, she certainly couldn't lower herself to personally seek out that female employee. That would be far too undignified. What use was good looks anyway? She was just an ordinary earthling after all. But Dong Ying never conceded defeat. Even if she didn't need to participate personally, she could still bring out her ultimate weapon, sending Mui Star's elite talents to have a chat with that female employee. Just a few days ago, Dong Ying had spent a high price to recruit a group of top talents who had just arrived on Earth from Mui Star through an underground intergalactic human resources agency. It was time to put them to use. Thinking this, Dong Ying immediately dialed the intercom. Your first mission is to investigate the dynamics between those two humans and sow discord in their relationship. I've sent you photos and information on those two in your emails. As for the action plan, I've given each of you a copy of the 2003 revised edition of the MUI Star Expert Compilation Earthling Conquest Guidebook with key sections I've highlighted for you. Study those parts on how to scheme and break up Earthling couples closely. Although Xiacheng was wealthy, tickets were still sold out. No matter how much Xiacheng regretted it now, he could only steel himself to line up at the back of the long queue. Lan Xu was better off, having ditched Xiacheng just minutes ago to go to the bathroom herself, leaving Xiacheng to hold their place in line. Was this how a subordinate should behave? Xiacheng was truly getting a headache. Fortunately, Xiacheng was the sort of person who could efficiently utilize time anywhere. While waiting alone in line, he took out his phone and handled some simple emails and work arrangements. However, just as he was engrossed in reading a report from his subordinate, he was interrupted by a hoarse, duck-like voice. Xiacheng. The voice was full of grief, yet as loud as if its owner was speaking through a megaphone. Not only Xiacheng, but even the others in line quietened down for a few seconds, attracted by the shout. Looking to the voice, Xiacheng saw a man wearing a t-shirt, surrounded by a few companions. They were all men, none of whom Xiacheng recognized. As Xiacheng watched silently, this group walked right up to him. Xiacheng's brows furrowed slightly. He really didn't remember ever seeing this person before. You're asking who I am. How can you even have the face to ask who I am? In response to his ordinary question, the man suddenly became somewhat hysterical, as if exceptionally aggrieved. If Xiacheng hadn't known what was going on before, he was starting to get an idea now. This was probably a scam. First wheedling out some personal information about the target, then speaking to them familiarly as if they were old friends or acquaintances. Once the target showed confusion and made clear they didn't recognize them, the scammer would turn the tables and reproachfully blame the target for not remembering them, making up some random name and claiming to be an old schoolmate or something. Sure enough, as if to prove Xiacheng's thoughts true, the man's companions immediately started clamoring supportively, as if they shared a common enemy. That's right, Xiacheng, you really do forget those close to you easily. How could you even forget something like this? Do you even have a heart? What's the matter, pretending not to recognize us now? Xiacheng gave a cold laugh as he watched them, quietly waiting for their next move. He had already started recording audio on his phone. He would let them go through the motions, then report them to the police. Sure enough, once the atmosphere had been appropriately set up and the crowd's attention brought to a peak, the man who had initially questioned Xiacheng began. His next sentence would be questioning how Xiacheng could have forgotten an old classmate or friend. How utterly lacking in creativity. Xiacheng was perfectly calm, right until saying you don't remember me. That wasn't what you were saying in bed. The man questioning Xiacheng suddenly put on a whimpering expression, yet his voice was louder than ever. You made love to me so passionately. Yet now you ask who I am. Xiacheng, you are heartless. Do you think you can just hit it and quit it and not take responsibility for me? That you can just bring your new flame to an amusement park? Let me make this clear, that won't happen. Today, right in front of your new love, I'm going to expose your ugly, despicable face. I'll let the whole universe know what a scumbag you are. Not just Xiacheng, even the onlookers lining up were stunned speechless. Xiacheng was completely unprepared for this kind of development. The crowd's gazes had already turned contemptuous. After all, what kind of man would disregard public opinion and come out himself to prove he had been betrayed, even at the risk of being filmed and exposed on the internet? It must be an act of desperation, a last stand with his back against the wall. Because his accusations were so explosive, the onlookers in line on both sides had already begun to be swayed. I just saw he had a woman with him in line earlier, so he was planning on cheating on someone for a shotgun wedding? Shameless. Dumping your boyfriend just to trick someone into marriage and carry on the family line, how can you even call yourself human? He looks quite handsome, who would have thought he was such a wolf in sheep's clothing? Bolstered by these voices from the crowd, the man questioning Xiacheng became even more impassioned. With eyes brimming with tears, he asked, Xiacheng, you don't want me anymore? Last night in bed, you were still sweet-talking me, saying you would stand against the whole world for me, yet now you. Xiacheng's face was black. I don't know what you're talking about. He had already called the police, but they wouldn't be able to arrive so quickly. Meanwhile, Xiacheng found himself surrounded by the mob of self-proclaimed justice-serving onlookers. At least give him an explanation. Have some basic decency as a human. The situation had suddenly become extremely tricky. Xiacheng was rendered entirely speechless. No matter how coldly he asserted his innocence, the mob refused to believe him. He hadn't expected scams to have evolved to this extent in this day and age. Just as he was about to be pushed into a corner, the man spoke again. "I'm already pregnant with your child. How can you bear to abandon your own flesh and blood like this?" Xiacheng. Crowd. What kind of idiot was this? Xiacheng looked at him grimly. "You're a man." The man was puzzled, of course. He even bashfully smiled coyly at Xiacheng, then continued in a stiff, formal way, as if reciting lines, "The child in my belly is a son who can inherit the family business and take over your career in the future. And I can satisfy whatever you want, be it having 1, 3, or more children. I will work hard to grow branches and leaves for the Xia family. I only beg you not to abandon me and our child." This was getting more ridiculous by the second. Just as Xiacheng was about to angrily rebuke him, he caught sight of Lan Shi stomping over furiously, face filled with rage. "You people are spurting blood from your mouths. This is slander against Xiacheng." Fortunately, his part-time bodyguard had finally arrived at the critical moment. Seeing Lan Shi's furious expression, Xiacheng finally felt a sense of relief at no longer being isolated without reinforcements. Heaven knew what a ridiculous farce this had turned into, surrounded by these abnormal people accusing him. Right now, he desperately needed a normal person who could stand by his side and confront this insane mob together. With his status, debating logically with these swindling lunatics could easily make him lose face. Leaving things to Lan Shi to handle would be more appropriate. Such an outrageous accusation of a man getting pregnant was surely something that any normal person would know how to refute. Although the opposing fraud gang had quite a few people, Lan Shi should be able to handle it. Sure enough, she gave Xiacheng a glance and took the initiative to volunteer. "Leave it to me." Xiacheng's face lightened up a bit. Then, he heard Lan Shi's powerful and sonorous refutation word for word. "How can you prove that this child is Xiacheng's? You claim the child is Xiacheng's. Have you done a DNA test? Have you done an amniocentesis? You're a man who looks undisciplined, wearing a t-shirt that reveals so much shoulder, and brought along so many other men who clearly have ambiguous relations with you. Otherwise, why would they help you for no reason? They must have indecent relations with you. As an unfaithful man, who knows if this child isn't yours and someone else's, and now you're trying to extort Xiacheng into being a cheap father." The opposing gang was apparently stumped by the questions and didn't know how to respond. Their previously arrogant manner had completely deflated. Lan Shi grew more vigorous in battle. "Furthermore, how many months has it been since conception? You have to provide evidence that directly correlates the child's gestational age with Xiacheng. Can you?" Xiacheng suddenly began to suspect that the only abnormal person here might be himself, because Lan Shi and those scammers were clearly on the same logical wavelength and could communicate seamlessly. Xiacheng felt a little helpless and rubbed his eyebrows. "Forget it, I already called the police. We'll just wait for them to come and hand these people over." However, upon saying this, Lan Shi's attitude took a drastic turn. She waved her hands repeatedly and said, "Wait. Let me talk to them alone for a bit. This could be a misunderstanding." After speaking, she grabbed 2 of the leaders of the group without further ado and headed to a nearby tree. Although she hadn't been on the roller coaster yet, Lan Shi felt like she had already experienced something more thrilling and dangerous than a roller coaster today. Once they were under the tree and away from Xiacheng, Lan Shi finally breathed a sigh of relief. She then glared at the instigators in front of her. "Are you out of your mind? How long have you been on Earth? Can you thoroughly study the Earthling Conquest Guide before coming out and wandering around? Do you know you almost blew our covers just now?" As expected, looks of shock appeared on their faces. Lan Shi didn't give them a chance to plead their case. She sighed. "Those lines you recited just now were verbatim from the guide section on how to scheme and break up Earthlings. I saw through your identities at first glance." Lan Shi couldn't help but roll her eyes. She went on, "To live on Earth requires flexible application of knowledge, not dogmatic adherence. It's better to have no books than to believe them unquestioningly. Have you heard that saying? Your statements just now were full of loopholes. Completely unconvincing. Anyone could tell with one look that there was something wrong with your brains. Now look at me. My rebuttal of you was well-reasoned and logical. It bears the hallmarks of an outstanding Earthling's thought process, rich in dialectics and logic, perfectly normal to allow me to integrate into Earth seamlessly without anyone suspecting me. People will only feel my cognitive abilities are extremely quick and that I'm brilliantly smart. You are. The two leader-like figures stared at the female protagonist for a moment before looks of sudden realization dawned on their faces. You're Princess Lan Shi? You're even more beautiful than the publicity posters. No wonder you looked familiar. We actually failed to recognize you earlier. Upon seeing Lan Shi, this group immediately poured out their grievances. Lan Shi finally understood what was going on. We had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. But we were also forced by circumstances. It was your cousin Dongying who coerced us. We came to Earth wanting to find jobs, but met a shady broker who packaged us as top talents from movie star when we aren't even really. We just wanted to come wash dishes or tighten screws in a factory. We never imagined your cousin would order us to make presumptuous moves against you, princess. But as expected of the princess. Your rebuttal of our words just now was so slick and watertight. It still has to be our princess whose disguise as an Earthling is so effortless. What you said was airtight and leak-proof. You've completely learned to think using an Earthling's mindset. That's the highest level of camouflage. After the flattery, one of them was nearly moved to tears, but princess, you must save us no matter what. We can't go to the police station. We don't even have Earth residence permits. We'd be finished if we went in LL New Estirise at N0V/LBI/.cm. Another immediately took a stand. We're willing to make amends. Lan Shi couldn't help but shake her head. In your current state without thoroughly studying the guide and not actually being movie star's top talents, what contributions could you make? The leader settled up to Lan Shi. Princess, aren't you trying to conquer and possess that Earthman? Lan Shi frowned without responding. We still have some insight. We're willing to contribute to your great conquest. Although we aren't top talents, we still have our own abilities. For example, I have an exceptionally loud voice, like a loudspeaker, said the man who had loudly accused Xiecheng earlier. He fawningly pointed to his companion next to him. As for him, he can only manage a small area, but he can manipulate clouds to make it rain. And him, he can control electronic devices and magnetic fields. The guide says that to conquer these Earthmen, romantic atmospheres catering to their tastes are often needed. Why not let us help create atmospheres to assist your highness? Tell us your needs directly. Consider it done. Lan Shi was moved. She felt her subjects made a lot of sense. Although she had conquered Xiecheng on the surface, he still hadn't brought up the ultimate issue of marriage. She was helpless without allies earlier, while facing threats from her detestable cousin trying to steal her man. External troubles combined with internal strife, the situation was extremely perilous. But now she would have helpers. The most important thing for people is to know how to leverage help. You understand romantic atmospheres? Faced with Lan Shi's question, the few immediately thumped their chests and assured her, we read the romance section of the guide over and over on the way here until we knew it back to front. Creating romance is absolutely our specialty. What romantic preferences does that Earthman you want to conquer have? We'll prescribe the right medicine. Romantic preferences? Lan Shi pondered before having a flash of inspiration. Yes. He likes taking walks in the rain without an umbrella. Likes walking in the rain, all right. Princess, we can basically analyze what kind of romance he likes based on that. We'll tailor-make a romantic plan for you. Do you have any other special instructions? Other matters. Lan Shi thought about it. Indeed, there were a few things. Firstly, the queues are too long. I need you to find me a shortcut to get priority access to the rides. Secondly, to showcase my determination and charm today, I can't let the Earthman spend a cent no matter what. Find whatever way to handle that for me so that he has no way to pay. Thirdly, there are too many people in the amusement park which could impact atmosphere cultivation and my performance. It would be best if there were no random bystanders within a 2-meter radius around us today. Don't worry, princess. We definitely won't fail our mission. Your needs perfectly match up with all our abilities. Perhaps this is our destined affinity. Lan Shi looked at the resolute and dependable faces before her and felt capturing Xiecheng today would be a sure thing. But, that Earthman looks hard to deal with. What if he still wants to take us to the police station? This time, it was Lan Shi's turn to thump her chest and give assurance, rest assured. I've already been undercover on Earth for a period, and combined with this princess' superior learning capability and integration ability, I figured out long ago how to respond in such crisis situations. As Lan Shi spoke, she pointed at a nearby cotton candy stand. A little girl there was crying and fussing for her mother to buy her cotton candy. However, refusal and anger showed on her mother's face. Look. As if predicted by Lan Shi, sure enough, the next second, the girl hugged her mother's legs just as her mother was about to turn and leave, pulling her mother down and giving her a big kiss on the face. Mom, I love you the most, Mom. Please buy it for me. Just this once, baby won't buy things randomly anymore. The next second, the mother who had just revealed an angry look, as expected, softened her expression, with helplessness and doting. You little rascal, Mom will buy it for you this time, but not again. The little girl finally got the cotton candy, holding her mother's hand, walked away cheerfully. Lan Shi withdrew her gaze, and began her on-site teaching. On Earth, a kiss on the face represents intimacy and trust. I have observed such situations many times on Earth before, when you can't achieve your goal because the other party is angry. As long as you kiss them, and then express your fondness and desire for their trust, you can basically get what you want. Things like this are not described in detail in the guidebook, so you have to be good at observing. Understood? Later, if Xiaqing is still angry, I will lead by example. You guys learn from me. Got it. The princess is brilliant. As expected of our princess. However the princess does it, we will do the same. After experiencing the bizarre extortion attempt, Xiaqing felt mentally exhausted. He had just calmed himself down under a tree when he saw Lan Shi leading those swindlers back towards him. The arrogance had now left the swindlers, replaced by sheepishness and respect. Apologize. At Lan Shi's authoritative order, the men bowed in unison. We're very sorry, big brother. Before Xiaqing could express his speechlessness, Lan Shi cleared her throat and began persuading. Xiaqing, this is what happened. I just had a long talk with them and found out they are actually my fellow villagers who came to the city to find work and make a living. They were tricked by someone into causing trouble for you, which led to this incident. They've now revealed the person behind it all to be Dongying. They know they were in the wrong and are willing to make amends and turn over a new leaf. Since no serious harm was done, can you forgive them? Dongying? Xiaqing's brows furrowed slightly. Dongying had seemed quite clever. Would she really hire these men of obvious diminished mental capacity to cause him trouble? The accusations you made against me earlier, those were also taught by Dongying? The man who had shouted the loudest earlier now hung his head like a quail. We came up with that ourselves. He then raised his head ingratiatingly at Xiaqing with a smile. Big brother, don't worry. I'll handle all those people who recorded videos. I absolutely won't let those videos get out and damage your reputation. I'll make sure your shining image lasts forever. Xiaqing realized what this familiar feeling was. He wasn't even dead yet, but his image was already going to last forever. Meanwhile, Lan Shi beside him didn't notice anything amiss at all. She kept peering at him obediently, her eyes conveying her hope that he would show leniency to her fellow villagers. Xiaqing rubbed his brow. Is there something wrong with the soil and water where you're from? The old saying goes that the land nurtures its people. It really rings true. Was there something sinister about Lan Shi's rural hometown that gathered social misfits and people of low IQ from all over the universe? But this wasn't something he could let slide. Xiaqing recalled his earlier helplessness and embarrassment at being unable to defend himself, and felt he still needed to handle this strictly. However, as he frowned, preparing to issue a final warning, Lan Shi suddenly moved closer to him. Rising on her tiptoes, she planted a kiss on Xiaqing's cheek. Please, Xiaqing? The instigator showed no embarrassment whatsoever at her actions, behaving so naturally that Xiaqing began questioning if it had been an illusion. Lan Shi was still staring straight at him. Come on, please? I know you're a good person. I really liked you before and I still really like you now. And I'll keep on liking you in the future. My fellow villagers are pitiful. Our village is very poor and they don't know much about the world. Just forgive them this once. Xiaqing was loath to admit it, but in this moment, gazed upon by Lan Shi with such trusting and pleading eyes, he truly wavered. He glanced at Lan Shi's idiotic fellow villagers. Somehow, even they were becoming less unpleasant to behold. It made sense, he considered. Coming from such a remote village, there surely was no prenatal screening, no emphasis on eugenics, so all kinds of simpletons would be born. They clearly lacked education as well, improperly using idioms was only natural. Even basic knowledge like men can't get pregnant was unfamiliar, showcasing an absence of even normal common sense. Their IQ was probably in the single digits if tested. As such disadvantaged groups in society, he really shouldn't nitpick at them either. They seemed more normal now, at least not endangering society anymore, so he could let it slide. Big brother, we like you too. We like you now and will keep liking you in the future. But before Xiaqing could make his final decision, the man who had claimed to be pregnant with his child aggressively approached him once more. His voice resumed its previous loudness as he made a declaration, then moved in close to Xiaqing's face, pursed his lips, seemingly about to plant them on Xiaqing's face. What are you doing? Are you trying to kiss me? Fortunately, Xiaqing reacted quickly enough to narrowly avoid this catastrophe. The other man was utterly shameless about it, however. I just wanted to also express my fondness and trust for Big Brother. That won't be necessary. Xiaqing felt his scalp tingle and his skin crawl. Stop. I won't pursue this matter further, but I also don't need your affections. Take them back and give them to someone else. Hearing that he would no longer pursue the matter, smiles broke out on the group of fools' faces. Of course, Big Brother. We'll definitely repay your kindness. After exchanging looks with one another, the group of men then left. Xiaqing watched their departing figures and finally relaxed. It was also then that he had no choice but to resume the earlier mood from Lan Shi's earlier surprise attack. Was she always so impulsive? Kissing him in front of all those people? Xiaqing felt it necessary to discuss proper boundaries with Lan Shi, but Lan Shi didn't give him the chance. She grabbed Xiaqing's hand and headed in the direction of the roller coaster they had ridden before. Let's go, let's ride the roller coaster. Due to the earlier extortion incident requiring them to leave the line, the queue was even longer than before now, thoroughly killing Xiaqing's enthusiasm. But Lan Shi remained optimistic. I have a way. No need to line up. We can also use the priority lane later. I'll handle it. She winked at Xiaqing mysteriously. My fellow villagers will make amends. They'll make arrangements for us. Xiaqing knew that besides the official channels, scalped tickets for skipping the line also existed. So Lan Shi's unreliable fellow villagers had channels for overpriced scalped tickets? It seemed forgiving them wasn't completely without merit after all. Soon, however, Xiaqing wished he could time travel 5 minutes back to take back his words. He had just followed Lan Shi to the end of the roller coaster queue when a resounding voice echoed from the front of the line. Big Brother. Come to the front. Cut in here. I got it all arranged for you. Show up and cut anytime, skip the line carefreely. With me here, no worries about cutting in line. There was something inexplicable about Lan Shi's fellow villager. His intelligence might be lacking, but his voice was astoundingly loud, basically a human megaphone resounding through the entire amusement park. It was as if worried Xiaqing couldn't hear him and he incessantly repeated. Big Brother Xiaqing. Come cut in line. I'm waiting for you at the front. Other people were looking his way now. Due to the earlier extortion incident, some bystanders still remembered Xiaqing's name. Under these condemning gazes, Xiaqing maintained perfect composure. He straightened his clothes and faced the skeptical elderly lady in front of the line with an expressionless face. I'm not Xiaqing. Xiaqing heard himself say calmly and convincingly, that man just mistook me for someone else. The elderly lady clucked her tongue. That's good then. This Xiaqing doesn't sound like someone of high character at all. Everyone's properly lining up, yet he still shamelessly and overtly wants to cut in line. What kind of person is that? Xiaqing felt extremely frustrated internally but still calmly and coolly nodded. Yes, terrible character. In the end, Xiaqing left the roller coaster queue with a dark expression on his face, forcibly pulling Lan Shi alongside him. It seemed he was trying hard to restrain some emotions. After a moment, he finally calmed down and looked at Lan Shi helplessly. He should have known better. How many times had he tripped over himself because of Lan Shi? Why wasn't he tired of being duped yet, actually trying to believe she would have any normal solution? Lan Shi, however, didn't know Xiaqing's thoughts. She only felt extremely bewildered. Xiaqing, why did that auntie scold you earlier? And why did you say you weren't Xiaqing? We could have cut in line just now, so why did we leave? Lan Shi actually felt quite aggrieved. Cutting in line isn't against the law. I didn't see it listed as an offense punishable by law. Xie Cheng's face was dark, seemingly furious and barely keeping some emotions in check. After a while, he finally calmed down and looked at Lan Shi helplessly. While it's true cutting in line isn't illegal, it's very uncivil. Oh! I wanted to ask earlier too. Lan Shi secretly sidled closer to Xie Cheng and whispered, what exactly is civilness? I'm not very clear about it. Can you explain it to me? The vocabulary of Earth people is broad and profound. Lan Shi could quickly and fluently understand many words that corresponded to objects or actions, but the word quality, she did not know what specific thing it was. She felt like she could not see or touch it. Although Lan Shi had seen the word quality in the guide before, the guide did not give a detailed explanation. Originally, Lan Shi would not ask such puzzling questions directly. However, after a period of teaching guidance, she realized that even her very peculiar questions, Xie Cheng, although speechless, never ridiculed her and would even patiently answer her questions. Over time, whenever Lan Shi encountered a problem, she would become a guinea pig who lazily asked Xie Cheng directly. Regarding this question, Xie Cheng did indeed answer her. It was just that this time the expressionless Xie Cheng answered her, it's hard to explain to you. Why is that? Because you probably don't have such a thing. Xie Cheng rubbed his brow more and more frequently, you'd better not ask anymore, because if you keep asking, my quality will disappear too. Xie Cheng looked unhappy. Lan Shi felt that she really shouldn't ask anymore. After all, she was a Mui star person, and probably really did not have such a thing called quality. The more she asked, the more she exposed. It was better to stop there. If there was no quality, then there was none. It didn't affect her life anyway. However, Xie Cheng refused to continue queuing and waiting for the roller coaster. Lan Shi was pulled by him to another place. There are still many projects in the amusement park that don't require queuing. I'll take you to play those projects first. When it's almost closing time, we'll go line up for the popular projects again. There will be fewer people by then. As soon as Xie Cheng finished speaking, his cell phone rang. He glanced at Lan Shi, wait for me, I'll take this call. Lan Shi nodded. While Xie Cheng was on the phone, she didn't idle either. She made a face at several Mui star followers who had been sneakily tailing her not far away. They didn't get to ride the roller coaster, so it was an unsuccessful start. They had better perform well at other things. Sure enough, when they saw Lan Shi's expression, the few people in the crowd immediately returned a respectful look. One of them silently mouthed, Princess. Please wait. Romance will be arranged for you immediately. Lan Shi breathed a sigh of relief. As long as there was a romantic atmosphere, it was fine. She was already rubbing her palms in anticipation. The moment to completely conquer Xie Cheng had arrived. It was then that Xie Cheng seemed to have finished his call and was walking towards Lan Shi. Find up Tedevils on n/v/elben.co/m. A handsome man, with vigorous masculinity, a model-like figure, and indelible elegance in his every move, and barely concealed noble temperament. Such a man was walking towards you and staring at you face to face. Lan Shi didn't know what had gotten into her. For an instant, she was looked at by Xie Cheng's gaze and her heart beat a little faster, and she even felt a little nervous. Although the amusement park was extremely noisy, and there were crowds of people around Xie Cheng, Lan Shi oddly felt that at a certain moment, when Xie Cheng walked towards her, it was as if everything around them had paused and was muted. All she could see clearly in her field of vision was Xie Cheng. Lan Shi had read in the guide to conquering Earth people that romance would make one's heart beat faster, make one blush and become nervous, and even become timid. There would be fiery heat and apprehension in one's heart. She touched her chest. It seemed like she had all these symptoms. So was this the romance of Earth people? She couldn't believe that her few fellow countrymen had arranged it so reliably that the romantic atmosphere was in place so quickly. Xie Cheng did look good and had temperament. What was most unforgettable were his eyes, which were often icy cold with a hint of keep-out frost that was very captivating. As Lan Shi thought this, she couldn't help raising her avoided gaze again, wanting to sneak a peek at Xie Cheng's eyes when she shouldn't have looked, Lan Shi was badly frightened. In the clear sky without a cloud for thousands of miles, there was a large black cloud floating above Xie Cheng's head that was drifting towards Lan Shi. It looked like it was about to rain. So the ability to control clouds and rain was real after all. But with just one black cloud above his head in this vast clear sky was a bit too deliberate. Could it not be more natural? Afraid no one would notice something was off. Probably feeling something strange above his head, Xia Cheng's previous model catwalk was forcibly interrupted. Lan Shi saw him stop and look up suspiciously. He stopped, but the cloud didn't. It continued drifting towards Lan Shi's head. Not far away, Lan Shi's few fellow countrymen were winking at her. "Princess. Rainy romance is arranged for you immediately. Hope you like it. Everything else is also ready." After whispering, they hurried away. Almost at the same time, the cloud drifted right above Lan Shi's head and stopped steadily. Then, splash! Rain poured down on Lan Shi's head. Lan Shi was drenched from head to toe. Xia Cheng didn't use an umbrella when walking in the rain, but she didn't like it. What kind of romance was this? Besides, shouldn't this freak rain be falling on Xia Cheng's head? How come Xia Cheng was still safe and sound standing not far away while she was the one getting rained on? Lan Shi was furious. She tried to get rid of that small black cloud, but it was all futile. The cloud seemed to be stuck to her head. As Lan Shi moved, the cloud floated along with her steps, eventually settling steadily on her. It was like playing chase. This oppressive cloud was like chewing gum that Lan Shi couldn't shake off. Wherever Lan Shi went, it rained there. The cloud seemed to be aimed at her, and the rain wasn't steady either. One moment it was drizzling, the next it turned to moderate rain. If Lan Shi didn't pay attention, the moderate rain would directly turn into heavy rain. Because it was raining heavily within a few meters centered around Lan Shi, the bustling crowds around them before had run away. Even Xia Cheng, who was barely standing right outside the rain's perimeter, wasn't surrounded by anyone now. The rain came down, and within 2 meters no one was around anymore. Everything was in accordance with Lan Shi's requirements, but everything was wrong too. The rain above her head had turned into heavy rain. Lan Shi's whole person was drenched like a drowned rat. Her hair was plastered to her face and her clothes were soggy and dripping. This had long departed from the atmosphere of a romance film and directly entered into a disaster film. This rain was much bigger than last time when she went to visit a client. No matter how much one liked walking in the rain, one probably couldn't bear such heavy rain. Moreover, the guide to conquering Earth people said that to be romantic and attractive, to seduce Earth men, women must have exquisite makeup and dresses. But now, Lan Shi's originally carefully made-up appearance had been washed by the heavy rain into that of a water ghost. As for atmosphere, forget about new romance sprouting up, even the little bit of original romantic atmosphere was now completely gone. She shouldn't have trusted those shady fellow countrymen. When she returned to Mui Star, she would definitely catch all of them and throw them in jail. Lan Shi really wanted to scold people, really wanted to take her troops to ask for an explanation, but those few fellow countrymen had long disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Xia Cheng was puzzled for a moment, then pursed his lips and walked towards Lan Shi from not far away. Although the weather report today said no rain, inaccurate forecasts happened often. But such a bizarre rain only over Lan Shi's head would be hard to explain scientifically. Lan Shi felt a little guilty. The scene was indeed bizarre. But the more so it was, the more Lan Shi felt she couldn't show weakness, otherwise if her and those few fellow countrymen's identities were seen through. This has nothing to do with me, this rain, it might have suddenly rained. And, it could be the so-called local rain that they report on the weather forecast. You see, it completely confirms the local rain. And by coincidence, the local area above my head happens to have rain. Ha ha ha, isn't that such a coincidence? As a result, Xia Cheng glanced at Lan Shi, turned his head, and left. Hey! Xia Cheng. Wait a moment. Even if she was unlucky to be rained on, he didn't have to be like this. In Lan Shi's heart, she cursed those few fellow countrymen from head to toe once more. For the first time, there was a stifled feeling in her heart, especially when seeing Xia Cheng's leaving back. She had never been the sentimental type, nor was she fragile. In terms of strength, she was one of the best in the entire universe. As such, Lan Shi seldom felt distressed. However, this time, despite not being injured at all, she inexplicably felt as though someone had stabbed her heart, and a feeling of sour swelling swept over her. She felt wronged and wanted to cry. How could Xia Cheng do this? Although being forced to stand in such heavy rain was very uncomfortable, and the weather around them had become overcast with the wind picking up, making it even more unpleasant after being drenched in rain, Lanshi had not forcibly tried to make Xiaqing stand in the rain with her. She had originally planned to ask Xiaqing to stay away from her, but there's a saying on Earth that goes share in the good fortune and share in the adversity, no? How could Xiaqing do this? Wait. Earth also has a saying, when disaster strikes, a couple will abandon each other and flee, so. She was lost in thought when she was suddenly interrupted by a familiar voice. Put this on. Before she could react, a piece of clothing was draped over her head. Xiaqing's voice was stiff and a little unnatural. I was going to buy an umbrella, but for some reason my phone kept having signal issues with the mobile payment, I couldn't pay. My bank cards were all demagnetized too, couldn't swipe them either. You got cash? Give me some and I'll go buy one. This must be Lanshi's fellow countrymen's doing again. Lanshi felt a little guilty. Xiaqing glanced at her, wear my clothes first to block the rain. After speaking, Xiaqing took Lanshi's phone from her hand and tried to turn on the screen, seeming somewhat surprised. You don't even set a passcode lock? Lanshi put on Xiaqing's clothes, finally feeling a little warmer as her strength seemed to return to her body. Because I live openly and honestly, I have nothing to hide. Xiaqing ignored her. Holding her phone, his face sank as he strode briskly toward a nearby store. The rain falling over Lanshi's head showed no signs of letting up, and the wind blowing on her damp body made her feel cold. Yet for some reason, Lanshi felt her heart grow warm. She had Xiaqing's jacket covering her head, his masculine cologne lingering around her, and though he wasn't by her side, it seemed his shadow filled every corner and every inch around her. Her heart inexplicably began beating faster. For the first time, Lanshi experienced an indescribable unfamiliar sensation. Though nothing particularly happy had happened, in fact, things were still going rather poorly, she didn't feel frustrated or angry. Though her body felt cold, her heart peculiarly felt warm. And though this was a very ordinary scenario, for some reason she felt nervous and anxious. Also, for the first time in her life, Lanshi cared about her identity. In all of history, this was the first time such a strange thought had occurred to her. How nice it would be if she were an Earthling. If she were from Earth, she would know how to handle this situation. She could carry on with Xiaqing without hiding anything. Unfortunately, Xiaqing didn't give her much time to fantasize. Soon enough he came walking out with an umbrella in hand. Xiaqing had long legs and a tall, straight figure. He usually walked with dignity and an air about him, never too quickly or too slowly, always an appropriate elegant pace. But now he went against his usual style. Bringing with him a hint of panic and chaos, he jogged toward Lanshi, still a youthful vigor in his step, like the fresh, clean scent of grass in spring blowing toward her in the wind and rain. Like a ray of bright sunshine piercing through the long dreary rainy season. Lanshi's heart couldn't help but start beating quickly again. She watched dumbly as Xiaqing ran to her side and willingly ran into the dark clouds raining down only above her head, stepping from sunshine into the downpour without caring about the muddy rainwater splashing onto his pant legs, ignoring the raindrops blowing in with the wind dampening the hair by his forehead. He only lifted the umbrella over Lanshi's head, manually constructing a space to block out the wind and rain for her. There, that's better. Lanshi looked up blankly at the pink canopy of the umbrella. Xiaqing cleared his throat, his voice a little awkward. They only had extra large ones left. Although it was very big. You could have gotten a small one for yourself and just stood where it wasn't raining. Xiaqing glanced at Lanshi, his voice still sounding a bit off. Since I already agreed to accompany you to the amusement park today, it would defeat the purpose if I went too far away. I keep my promises. That was true too, however. Even if you wanted to walk side by side with me in the rain, you could have still bought 2 umbrellas. At this, Xiaqing became unhappy. He glared at Lanshi, perhaps also thoroughly drenched from the rain. His voice grew even more unnatural, and he avoided her gaze. Why do you ask so many questions? His tone turned cold. Is your salary very high? Looking at the balance in your bank account, it doesn't seem like much either. Buying 2 umbrellas costs money. I'm saving you money. What do you mean you openly and honestly don't set a passcode? I see no need for you to set a passcode given your limited balance. He made a fair point. Lanshi nodded profusely. In any case, with Xiaqing here accompanying her and holding an umbrella for her, strangely, her mood inexplicably turned cheerful. The rain continued pouring down even harder. With only one umbrella, Lanshi had no choice but to stand very close to Xiaqing. Yet oddly enough, though Lan Shi was typically unaffected standing close to Xia Cheng, this time, she felt as if he were a strangely magnetic magnet. The closer she got, her whole body started reacting strangely, and she no longer felt like herself. She grew a little nervous, her palms lightly sweating. With every inch Xia Cheng shifted closer, Lan Shi felt as if the very air had thinned. Lan Shi secretly snuck glances at Xia Cheng beside her. Had this earthling somehow drugged her? She silently cheered herself on. Pull yourself together, Lan Shi. You're a princess. But the relentless rain continued falling upon Lan Shi. Left with no other choice, Lan Shi also knew she'd have to give up on the outdoor amusement park activities today. Fortunately, there were indoor venues. Holding the umbrella, Xia Cheng led her toward the nearest gift shop. Lan Shi immediately grew cautious. Are you going to buy souvenirs? They had agreed to spend Lan Shi's limited money today. With her tight budget, she had calculated down to every last penny, with absolutely nothing left for souvenir shopping. But since today's goal was to completely win over Xia Cheng and to demonstrate her attitude by spending money on him, naturally she had to flaunt her willingness to spare no expense for love. Lan Shi gritted her teeth, ready to make huge sacrifices. Go ahead and buy. I'll give up my late-night snack budget for you to get souvenirs. Xia Cheng glanced at her. And how much is your snack budget? $100. Lan Shi felt tremendous heartache. Possessing far greater strength than Earthlings, she also burned far more calories than them. Going without late-night snacks would leave her starving. But that's not it at all. Lan Shi felt even more distressed, yet she endured. Hurry up and pick something. If she didn't buy now, she'd regret it later. In fact, Lan Shi already regretted it. They should never have entered this gift shop, because there were far too many plush toys. Since the amusement park mascot was a penguin, the shop was filled with all kinds of adorable fluffy penguin plushes, which Lan Shi had zero resistance against. But they really were expensive. Seeing the price tags, Lan Shi knew her budget couldn't cover buying one of these soft penguin toys. She could only reluctantly yet affectionately stroke them again and again. Perhaps these penguins were just too cute. As Lan Shi stood there petting them, she noticed a number of men walking past the shelves across from her, peering at her through the gaps between products on the shelves. Those gazes were intense, some blatant, some furtive. With the two shelves filled with nothing but penguin plushes, they seemed to be very popular. On the other side, Xia Cheng seemed to have already picked out some souvenirs, but his previously steady gait came to an abrupt stop upon seeing Lan Shi. The man's face darkened as he quickly strode forward and reached out, grasping the suit jacket draped over Lan Shi's body and pulling it tighter around her in an unquestionably commanding tone. Take that off, put this on properly. Lan Shi didn't understand, but still grumbled as she slid her hands into the oversized sleeves. Xia Cheng's clothes were far too big on her. She had already known he was exceptionally tall, but only upon switching from having the jacket draped over her shoulders to actually wearing his jacket did Lan Shi feel his size even more strongly. Her hands were completely swallowed up by the long sleeves, like a child playing dress-up in adult clothing. It was really a bit strange. What was even stranger was that, for some reason, all those men who had been stealing glances at the goods cabinet left as soon as Xia Cheng arrived. Before Lan Shi could protest taking off the suit, Xia Cheng reached out and swiftly buttoned up every button from collar to hem with his long, slender fingers, not wasting any time. But for some reason, as soon as he finished buttoning up and glanced at Lan Shi's chest, he recoiled as if burned, averting his gaze. Yet his hands kept moving, quickly unbuttoning his own suit. Take it off, he said. He must have realized how ugly he looked wearing the suit. Lan Shi obligingly took it off and was about to return the suit to Xia Cheng when she saw him coming over with the suit again. This time, he had turned the suit inside out. Put it on backwards, he said. Not giving Lan Shi a chance to retort, Xia Cheng wrapped the inside-out suit around her himself. We can check out now, he said, sounding a little odd as he handed Lan Shi a t-shirt. I can't pay with my phone or bank card. I'll transfer you the money when I get back. No need, no need. Now was the time to demonstrate her willingness to sacrifice. Lan Shi put on a selfless expression. I'll take care of it. The clothes weren't actually expensive, and Xia Cheng had kept the prices under control. Although Lan Shi didn't understand why, when he had so many expensive clothes, he'd chosen to buy this cheap, tacky t-shirt from a roadside stall with no design aesthetic, she didn't say a word. Gritting her teeth, she paid for him, wanting to showcase her willingness to spend money for love. But as soon as Lan Shi finished paying, Xia Cheng tossed the t-shirt into her hands. Earthling romance. Was she expected to pay and serve? You want me to carry this? Xiaqing pressed his lips together briefly. Go change. Lanshi was startled for a moment before shaking out the t-shirt and realizing it wasn't Xiaqing's size at all, but hers. So you spent my money to buy something for me? Lanshi was torn between laughter and tears. I don't need clothes. They could still get a refund if the tag was intact. Xiaqing clearly knew what Lanshi was thinking because he grabbed her hand. No returns. Go change. He cast a furtive glance over Lanshi. Your clothes got wet in the rain earlier. Go put on something dry. Lanshi looked down at herself and reacted only then. Oh right, Earthlings were more delicate than Mui star people. Getting rained on a little could make them sick. Her mood suddenly lightened. Xiaqing, thinking of these little details, surely proved the emotional foundation of their previous conqueror-subject relationship was solid, right? Lanshi couldn't resist giving Xiaqing a tender, loving look. So you did it for my sake, right? Xiaqing avoided her gaze, lightly clearing his throat with a complicated expression. But his voice was mocking. Don't get ahead of yourself. I didn't do it for you, but for the sake of all the men present. How was that connected? Lanshi didn't get his logic at all. But in her eyes, this was clearly Xiaqing caring for and cherishing her. She happily went to change, and when she emerged from the bathroom, Xiaqing immediately shoved something furry into her arms, a plush penguin. I don't like childish things. You can have it. They gave it to me for free anyway, he said coldly, moving his gaze away. His voice sounded a little odd. They forced it on me just for participating in some event. What luck! She wished she'd run into an event like that. She hurriedly hugged the penguin tight. You said it yourself. So now it's mine. Xiaqing glanced at her. Who's fighting you for it? He walked off after leaving her with that line. This time, Lanshi obediently followed him instead of going back outside. She chose an indoor amusement park attraction, hugging her penguin. Although the indoor rides weren't as thrilling as the outdoor roller coasters, Lanshi had never been to an amusement park before and found everything inside novel and exciting. Just the carousel alone kept her dragging Xiaqing on and off for 5 rides, but oddly, despite how fun it was, nearly every person queuing up besides Lanshi and Xiaqing was a short elementary schooler. Towering above the huddled group of children, Xiaqing stuck out like a crane among chickens. Compared to the roller coaster lines, the carousel queue was short, the wait brief. But for some reason, despite being surrounded by a gaggle of chattering children, Xiaqing's face radiated utter misery, visibly forcing himself to maintain composure under their observation. Still, he patiently accompanied Lanshi for 5 repeat rides. Actually, Lanshi wanted a 6th ride, but in the lineup, one of the schoolchildren suddenly grabbed his mother eagerly upon spotting Xiaqing. Mom, look! That uncle got a free penguin for answering the penguin quiz earlier. The boy complained, you said penguins were too expensive. Why didn't you answer trivia for me so I could get one for free too? The mother patted her son's head. That quiz had 100 questions. You had to get over 90 right, and it probably took this uncle a while to finish. Not everyone can answer them all correctly. Huh? Didn't he say it was free for participating in some event? Lanshi turned back to look at Xiaqing, whose expression was awful, lips pressed tight, clearly unhappy. Lanshi had just opened her mouth when he preempted her warningly. Don't ask. Or you'll lose your penguin, he threatened sinisterly. Lanshi hugged her little penguin and didn't dare say anything more. She wanted to turn around and ask the school kid for more details, but before she could, Xiaqing was tugging her out of the carousel queue. Xiaqing somehow looked completely solemn and impartial. You've gone on that ride too many times. Time to switch it up. After exploring all the indoor attractions at the amusement park, it was already getting late. And Lanshi, the unreliable fellow villager, finally concluded the romantic rainy atmosphere that she arranged. However, unfortunately, Xiaqing's phone and bank card were still affected, and he still couldn't make payments. It was simply too perfect. Lanshi brimmed with confidence, saying, "Let me take you out for dinner." She had everything planned out and was full of confidence, saying, "I've arranged a place with a very artistic ambience." 30 minutes later, Xiaqing looked at the small hill in front of him, his face filled with disbelief. Is this the place with artistic ambience? Not yet, not yet. Let's grab something to eat first. After that, I'll take you there. She remained composed as she took out 2 bottles of Evian water and handed one to Xiaqing. Drink up. I just bought this. I'll cover all the expenses tonight. Xiaqing was indeed a bit thirsty, so he took the bottle of Evian water and finished it in one gulp. After finishing, he tossed the bottle into the trash can and then turned to look at Lanshi. Let's go, let's have dinner. Currently, the two of them were in a park behind the amusement park. As far as Xiaqing knew, there were indeed several high-end restaurants in this park. They were in high demand due to the pleasant environment and skilled chefs. Most of them required a reservation a month in advance, and the prices were also very expensive. Presumably, Lanshi planned to take him to such a restaurant. This trip showed that Lanshi was considerate. She even knew how to match Xiaqing's style. She didn't prepare ordinary mineral water but Evian water. She chose a restaurant with a good environment, even if it meant spending a lot of money on dinner. It showed that despite her social awkwardness, she had grown to some extent. Lanshi deep down acknowledged his efforts for her. Although she was stingy with money earlier, being reluctant to buy fast passes and cutting budgets here and there, it was understandable that she wanted to save money for the important things. Since most of the budget was spent on food, it was forgivable. Xiaqing decided to forgive Lanshi. It wasn't in vain that he worked overtime all week and sacrificed this day to accompany her at the amusement park, enduring the curious and disdainful gazes of elementary school students as they lined up 5 times to ride the childish carousel. Lanshi was grateful, and that brought Xiaqing some comfort. Even though his bank card and mobile payment were inexplicably malfunctioning, Xiaqing decided to give Chowan a call after dinner to have him remotely scan the payment code. Considering that Lanshi didn't earn much, her willingness to treat him to such an expensive restaurant was enough. Xiaqing appreciated her attitude. Therefore, he decided to foot the bill himself. However, before Xiaqing could further bask in his relief, he heard Lanshi's surprised voice. Dinner? Didn't we just eat? She casually pointed to the glass bottle of Evian water in her hand and said, Didn't I already treat you to a meal? Xiaqing was taken aback. This is just water. Yes, it's water. Lanshi nodded solemnly. Haven't you heard the saying? A meal is not complete without water. This water, with bubbles, fills our empty stomachs and makes us feel more satisfied. Our previous connection, just like these bubbles, seems to be endless. Isn't it true that the more we drink, the more fulfilled we become? Lanshi confidently said, That's why this water is a validator of our emotions. Look, after drinking it, aren't you no longer hungry? Xiaqing gritted his teeth. Lanshi confidently replied, I knew you wouldn't be hungry. With a deep affection in her eyes, Lanshi looked at Xiaqing and asked, Do you know why? Why else? Xiaqing was infuriated. If he worked so hard all day and still wasn't hungry, there was only one explanation: his stomach was messed up. His stomach was fine, so he was very hungry. However, Lanshi seemed completely absorbed in her own world. She looked at Xiaqing again, her lips slightly parted, and with great emphasis and significance, she said, It's because you love me. LL new rise at N0V/LBI/.cm. Tonight, Lanshi was determined to win. Success or failure depended on this battle. Tonight was the key to whether she could marry Xiaqing. She stayed up late last night, meticulously reading the chapter on marriage in the Guide to Conquering Earthlings, and suddenly realized that proposing wasn't something only men could do, it could also be done by women. As long as the emotions were there and the atmosphere was right, when a woman took the initiative to propose, the man would usually be moved and agree on the spot. Xiaqing might be shy, but instead of waiting for him to propose, Lanshi decided to take matters into her own hands and propose herself. Before a woman takes the initiative to propose, she needs to make the man aware of how much she values the relationship. After all, some Earthlings don't realize how dependent they are on their partners and try to avoid marriage at the mention of it. Therefore, before proposing, the woman needs to design a scenario that makes the man realize he can't live without her, face his own feelings, and become aware that the intensity of his love for his partner has reached the point of being ready for marriage. Afterward, when the woman takes the initiative to propose, it will be a sure success. Now, Lanshi could recite the theoretical knowledge from the guidebook by heart. Through months of accumulated learning, Lanshi had also remembered an old Earth saying, Love can quench your thirst. Although as a Mui star alien, she couldn't understand how drinking water could satisfy hunger, fragile Earthlings had their strengths. It turned out that once they developed feelings, all they needed was water. quite economical and environmentally friendly. Therefore, being resourceful, she had already arranged in advance the scenario of love-quenching water. If Xiaqing drank the water but didn't feel hungry, he would realize that his feelings for her were so strong that even drinking water could satiate him. With such intensity, marriage would naturally follow. So, next, Lanshi was about to make her final move and propose. She stayed up all night consulting the guidebook and researching online for half the night. She decided to propose in the most secure way possible, so she surveyed the location early and made preparations in advance. Now, she gazed affectionately at Xiaqing, asking him to wait for her a little while longer. Lanshi hurriedly walked towards the bamboo forest on the back mountain. There, she had already arranged candles in the shape of a heart and placed Xiaqing's photo surrounded by fresh flowers. Lanshi took out a lighter and lit the candles one by one. Soon, the desired effect emerged. It was now the moment just after sunset, with the sky on the verge of turning into night. The flickering candlelight was both romantic and gentle, surrounded by a cluster of flowers. Xiaqing's photo, positioned within the heart-shaped arrangement of candles, smiled back at her. 1. Ready to go. Lanshi smiled with satisfaction. She led him to the previously prepared location. When Lanshi mentioned being well-fed with love, Xiaqing initially thought it was a joke. However, he couldn't find any traces of humor on Lanshi's face. Her expression and tone were very serious. Xiaqing deeply regretted it. Expecting Lanshi to act normally was the most abnormal thing of all. She really had no intention of eating. And the most astonishing thing was her audacious statement that rang through his ears. Because you love me. In a daze, Xiaqing felt as if a thunderbolt had struck from the sky, leaving him dumbfounded. But Lanshi didn't give him a chance to explain or question her. After briefly leaving, she returned and pulled Xiaqing along. Come, I'll take you to a place with artistic conception. Unaware of the audacious words she had just spoken, Lanshi remained calm and composed, holding Xiaqing's hand as they walked deeper into the bamboo forest on the back mountain. The environment here was tranquil and full of greenery, but it also felt increasingly desolate. Upon bypassing the bamboo forest, Xiaqing finally saw the arrangement in front of him on the open grassland. A circle had been formed with candles, and in the center of the candles, there was a photo. Due to the angle and distance, Xiaqing hadn't been able to see clearly who was in the photo. With the setting sun, the scene was already melancholic, and the temperature carried the chill of approaching night. The white candles burned silently, and on the white candles, black characters spelled out the word memorial. The area around the candles was filled with fresh yellow and white chrysanthemums. This was unexpectedly an outdoor memorial hall. So, the person in the photo was Lanshi's relative? Xiaqing furrowed his brow, completely unaware of what was going on. He also didn't understand why Lanshi brought him here. However, some intuition and experience made Xiaqing feel that something unpleasant was about to happen. He didn't have to wait long for that moment. As Xiaqing approached and saw clearly who was in the center of the circle of memorial candles, he understood. His intuition was not wrong. The person in the photo was unmistakably himself. This was actually a memorial hall set up for him. Xiaqing immediately turned his head and stared at Lanshi, gritting his teeth and asking, "What do you mean?" As the moment arrived, Lanshi surprisingly remained calm and composed. She cleared her throat and then glanced at Xiaqing, whose face was as dark as night. With an affectionate gaze, she spoke with emotion. "Xiaqing, as you have perceived, I brought you here today with a special purpose, arranging all this to convey a straightforward message to you." "What message?" Xiaqing wondered. "Are you in such a hurry to send me on my way? I'm not dead yet, and you've already set up a memorial ceremony for me." Though it seemed that the time was near, Xiaqing felt that Lanshi was indeed pushing him away. Nearly grinding his teeth, he stared at her and asked, "Lanshi, what have I done to provoke you?" But before he could finish his question, Lanshi's face lit up with joy. "You finally stopped speaking nonsense. This time, we're finally on the same wavelength. I've been waiting for you to say those words for a long time. I've long prepared my response." Xiaqing hadn't even had a chance to react when he saw Lanshi take a deep breath and then focus on him with tenderness and affection. "Xiaqing, you have indeed provoked and stirred my heart." Silence fell upon Xiaqing. Lanshi paid no attention to his silence. It was as if she had rehearsed the scene countless times in her mind, knowing her lines by heart. In a poetic and rhythmic tone, she continued. "So, I sentence you to love me, an indefinite term. From now on, in my world, you will be imprisoned for life. Xiaqing remained silent. He felt that silence was inadequate to respond to this situation. He began to question whether he had even visited the amusement park today, or if everything that had happened was merely a dream he had while lying in bed due to fatigue, a nonsensical nightmare. The instigator of this nightmare had a sweet face, a figure that could captivate anyone, and innocent yet deep eyes. She was like poison concealed in sugar icing, and at the same time, an enticing trap. As she gazed into Xiaqing's eyes, she spoke each word deliberately. Xiaqing, I believe our relationship has long reached the stage. Getting married or not is just a formality, but life demands a sense of ceremony. Since I have prepared all these perfect arrangements, I don't want to waste them. I want to write a perfect ending for our love story and leave it open-ended. Lan Shi's eyes sparkled with determination as she declared her revolutionary conviction, so today, here, I, the Honorable Lan Shi, solemnly propose to you. I don't mind your fragility, I don't mind your short life, and I am willing to be with you forever. After her profound and inspiring speech, only the sounds of insects and frogs remained in the surroundings. Xiaqing was completely stunned, feeling as though he had lost the ability to speak. Who among normal people could utter words in this situation? Before coming to the amusement park, Xiaqing suspected that Lan Shi might confess her feelings. However, he never expected to be so utterly mistaken. Lan Shi didn't confess at all, she went straight to a marriage proposal. And she even set up a memorial hall in this desolate wilderness. What does this mean? Is it a threat? He refused, so she turned the proposal into a funeral procession? And the ellipsis that left their relationship unfinished? Xiaqing felt that between him and her, it might be better to draw a period representing closure. Yi Firen recommends his other works to you. Hope you like them too. That's all for this part, truckers. See you all in next video.